Be meticulous in your cleaning. Lord Marquis' main room must be tidied up properly. Since it's the end of the year, there will be many guests. We must not show any impropriety. On the 18th of the 12th month, the manor began preparations for the New Year's celebration and began tidying up. Chizhou had been busy with welcoming guests and seeing them off for the past few days. Fearing that he would not be able to pay attention to the tidiness, he personally took care of supervising the subordinates. Yufu accompanied Gu Huaijiang for a game of chess inside the room. Looking out through a half-opened window, the yard was filled with servants moving back and forth. Qian was like a reliable old pine tree that could not be blown over by the wind. As long as he was standing there, everyone had a sense of direction. It was very methodical. Gu Huaijiang put down a chess piece. I initially thought that Xu Bai and his group would have been able to return by now. It's already the 18th. There are many things to take care of in the manor, and Steward Qi's back is breaking from exhaustion. That's right, it was already the 18th. Did eldest brother send a letter to say when he would be back? The previous letter is one that arrived 5 days ago. It said that they safely escorted Yunyan's group to Jinling and would be setting out to return. He suddenly remembered something and stood up. Flipping through the mail in the study, his eyes lit up. This is a letter that came from Immortal's Valley. Why was I not told immediately? The servant at the door bowed and said, Lord Marquis, please calm your anger. This is a letter from Immortal's Valley, but it was not sent by the deity of medicine. Gu Huaijiang had sent someone to deliver a letter to Sun Qi in Immortal's Valley the previous month to discuss the matter of Gu Shubai and Yufu's engagement. They had been waiting for a reply this entire time. However, he never replied. Instead, he had someone else from Immortal's Valley send a reply? What sort of craziness was this? Yufu stared at the letter and suddenly had a bad feeling about this. She watched Gu Huaijiang open up the letter. On this large piece of paper, there were just a few large words. It did not look like a letter. Rather, it looked more like a declaration of war. Master instructed me to respond to the letter in his stead. Master has just 2 words. Dream on. Gu Huaijiang's expression suddenly became stiff. Head General, let me take a look. Gu Huaijiang suddenly lifted the letter up high, and Yufu could no longer reach it even when she jumped. He smiled and said, Your master doesn't really agree to it. He must be too unwilling to let you go. But it's fine. I will slowly discuss it with your master. There's no need for you to worry. Not worrying would truly be strange. The head general, he probably did not know just how ugly his forced smile was. Yufu knew at heart that the contents must not have been very good. Thus she decided to give up. All right then, I will listen to head general and master's arrangements. Master has a strange temperament. If he said anything too crude, please do not pay it any mind. This was not just strange, and it was not just crude. Rather than directly insult Gu Huaijiang, he had his disciple send an insulting reply. This made it very evident just how much he doted on Yufu and how unwilling he was to have this disciple marry someone in the future. In truth, if this had been Gu Huaijiang, he would also be unwilling to have Yufu engaged to someone else so early. If not for Gu Shubai being his own child, how could he have been so impatient? He had no desire to share. His adopted daughter was to become his daughter-in-law, and their relationship would become a little closer. It's fine. Your master is a person aloof of this world's affairs and is a little bit strange. Let's take it slow. You are still young, so there is no real rush. After thinking this through, Gu Huaijiang's complexion returned to normal, and the two sat back down at the chessboard. Qian was still in the courtyard. Yufu said, Head General, I recall that Steward Qi's granddaughter was sent out to the countryside, and it has been over half a year, right? Steward Qi has worked hard, and it's about to be the new year. Should she be brought back so that they can have a family reunion? Gu Huaijiang said, In truth, I have been thinking about this for some time. Steward Qi has been with the manor for a long time, and Chizhou has taken on some important responsibilities. For the sake of allowing their family to enjoy being together as a family, I should allow her to return. It's just that she was sent away because she framed you, so I needed to show you some consideration too. Yufu smiled and said, Now that I have spoken, there's no need for Head General to worry about that. She has been exiled for such a long time, so she must have recognized her mistakes. If she is able to change, Just allow her to stay after returning this time. Gu Huaijiang did not say anything about it, yet Yu Fu herself brought up her future. It could be seen that she was being genuine. He was quite moved. I wonder where you got this temperament from. Though I do not have a daughter of my own, I have seen many girls over the years. Even my elder sister's temperament is not as good as yours. Madame Su was known among the ladies for her tolerance, dignity, and courtesy. She could not compare with Yu Fu. This was truly rarely seen. Based on the reply from Immortal's Valley, the deity of medicine, Sun Qi, did not have such a temperament. Reading between the lines, the words "dream on" were filled with anger. Gu Huaijiang was able to hear his angry curses through the paper. He could teach Yu Fu about medicine and poison, but he could not cultivate such a tolerant temperament. Yu Fu did not sing her own praises. Madame Su isn't narrow-minded. She just had some misunderstandings about me at the beginning. I'm living in this manner, eating well, and have clothing to wear. What is there for me to fuss over? The only thing that she wanted to fuss over was Gu Shubai. Aside from herself, he was not allowed to like anyone else. Gu Huaijiang burst out laughing. I understand. Narrow-mindedness is a result of life not going well. Those whose lives are going smoothly will naturally be more broad-minded. He wanted Yu Fu to continue on like this, live a life free of worry, and never become narrow-minded. The snow was falling heavily on their way back to the capital, and Gui rode his horse over to Gu Shubai's side. He looked to be very happy and had a bit of the pastry given to him by Yu Fu in his mouth. He casually extended it to Gu Shubai. Eldest brother, have a pastry. I won't eat for now. There's a mountain pass up ahead. Be careful. Gu Shubai urged his horse a few steps ahead to lead the group when a sudden rush of wind came. Careful, he shouted through the wind and snow, but before Gui could react, an arrow filled with killing intent flew straight at his chest. Eldest brother, save me. Gui fell to the ground, as blood spurted from the base of his neck, dyeing red a patch of snow. The half-eaten pastry also rolled to the ground and was also dyed red. Eldest brother, save me. Fifth brother, save me. Gu-yi, I came to save you. Fifth brother came to save you. Gu Xiang shouted loudly and reached out to Gu-yi, but he was unable to reach him. Gu-yi, Gu-yi. Gu Xiang, wake up. Having been slapped a couple times in the face, Gu Xiang suddenly sat up and found that he had been dreaming, and Gu Winching had been sitting next to the bed while holding up a light. Gu Xiang wiped away some sweat, but had not yet fully recovered from the fright. Fourth brother, why are you here? Gu Winching put the light next to the bed. I noticed that the weather was quite good tonight and came out for a walk. When passing by your courtyard, I heard you shouting quite loudly. Your personal servant sleeps a little too soundly. I could hear it from outside the courtyard, yet he could not hear it from inside. Speak of the devil, the personal servant was called Little Mutu. He was around 15 or 16 years of age, and he tiptoed inside with a cloak on his back. He entered with a cup of tea and said in embarrassment, in the past, it was the sixth young sir who had trouble sleeping. Now that the sixth young sir has gone to Jinling, I slacked off a little. Fourth young sir, please don't tell Steward Chi. I won't do it again. He had initially heard the sounds and planned to come over, but he also saw Gu Winching come in from outside the courtyard, thus he went to go and pour tea first. Gu Winching saw the cup of tea and no longer placed any blame on him. Little Mu too, you're the only one who would slack off. But it is strange. Your fifth young sir usually never has nightmares. After drinking some tea, Gu Xiang had calmed down a little and furrowed his brow. I also have no idea what happened, as I've had a hard time sleeping recently. Just now, I dreamed of Gu-yi and eldest brother. Gu-yi had his throat cut and fell to the snowy ground. The blood dyed a large area red. Gu Winching covered his mouth. It's just a dream. It's almost the new year, so don't say such inauspicious things. Gu Xiang said, Fourth brother, what day is it now? Xiao Mutu rushed to reply, Fifth young sir has been a little muddled lately. It's already the 20th. When the sun comes up, it will be the 21st. 21st? Then would it not be the new year in just 9 days? Fourth brother, don't you feel that something is off? Normally speaking, eldest brother and his group should have returned a few days ago. Even if the wind and snow slow them down, they should have returned by now. Gu Wenqing nodded. When I went to pay respects to father yesterday, I faintly heard father and steward chit-chatting. He said that it had been 7 or 8 days since the last letter from eldest brother. Gu Xiang urgently said, eldest brother has always handled things reliably. Whenever he went out, he would send a letter every few days to let people at home feel at ease. How could he possibly have gone 7 or 8 days without sending home a letter? He lifted his blanket and grabbed a piece of outerwear from the foot of his bed, then put it on. Fourth brother, I keep having a bad feeling. I feel like something definitely happened to eldest brother's group. Gui and I have always had a sense of telepathy. When he stuck out his butt, I knew if he needed to shit or fart. I could not possibly dream that he died for no reason. Gu Wenqing grabbed his arms. What are you going to do right now? Tell father? If it was just your imagination running wild, how could waking father up in the middle of the night be good? Fourth brother, trust me. I am willing to make a military pledge to you that something definitely happened to Gui. Trust me. The people in Marquis Gu's manor would not mention a military pledge lightly. If he said it like this, he must have some grasp on the situation. Gu Wenqing changed his grip and pulled him toward the door. Let's go and tell father quickly. Hey, fourth brother, I still haven't put on my shoes. A bit of light illuminated the main room. Both Qian and Qizhou were in attendance, but nobody knew what had happened. They just knew that Gu Wenqing and Gu Xiang had come running over in the middle of the night to look for Gu Huaijiang. Thus something must have happened. How could the people in the manor continue to sleep? When Gu Jiugu heard this news, he immediately headed towards the main room. Father. He cupped his hands in a salute. Noticing that Gu Huaijiang had ordered for the tea to be made extra hot, he took a sip and slightly furrowed his brow. He then turned to Gu Wenqing. What exactly happened? Gu Xiang rushed to answer. Second brother, something happened to eldest brother and Gu Yi. I can guarantee that something definitely happened to them. Father, quickly dispatch soldiers to look for eldest brother and them, or it will be too late. Gu Wenqing added, Father, eldest brother and sixth brother have been gone for over 10 days. It's possible that they truly have run into something dangerous. When they left, they brought along 40 people. Son wishes to take a group of troops to go and meet up with eldest brother. Gu Huaijiang was frowning the entire time and did not react much to what was being said. It seemed as though something happening was within his expectations. Gu Jiugu remembered what Gu Shubai had told him before leaving and became even more certain. Father, twins have a sense of telepathy. When Gui was young and got into fights with other children from the extended family, Gu Xiang would always be able to tell. His feeling right now is also definitely going to be right. Gu Huaijiang turned his head to look at him. Then you're saying that Gu Yi really did die? What? You dreamed that Gui died? Gu Jiugu had arrived a bit later and did not hear about the contents of Gu Xiang's dream. He had actually just said that Gu Xiang's feeling would definitely not be wrong. When Gu Huaijiang heard this, just how heartbroken must he have felt? Father, Gui definitely will not die. I will immediately lead some troops to go and receive them. If I set out overnight, I will definitely be able to catch up to them. Gu Huaijiang nodded. All right, bring along 500 troops with you. Bring along Marquis Gu's manor's golden decree and set out at sunrise. Wenqing, you take care of things in the manor for your second brother. Gu Wenqing knew that his martial arts ability paled when compared to his older brothers, thus did not argue. Yes, father. It's just that dispatching 500 troops out of the city is no small matter. Should we report it to the Board of War? Gu Jiugu exchanged a look with him, as both had looks of surprise in their eyes. As the top general, Gu Huaijiang had always been reluctant to use his powers lightly. When he made use of 40 to escort Madame Su's group back to Jinling, that was the most that he had ever used. This time, he told Gu Jiugu to bring 500 troops, and everyone in the city would know come morning. This was not the way that Gu Huaijiang usually did things. According to Easternling's laws, mobilizing 500 or more troops requires approval from the Board of War. But waiting to report to them when the sun comes up tomorrow, the travel will cause some delays. Take my golden decree with you, and lead the troops out of the city. I will take care of reporting the matter. With him having said this much, there was nothing else for Gu Jiugu to worry about. Yes, Son will go and select the soldiers immediately. Second brother, please wait. Yu Fu suddenly walked in from the outside and saluted Gu Huaijiang. Head General, I want to go with second brother. Yu Fu and Gu Shubai shared profound feelings, and she had always been playing with Gu Yi. It was natural that she would be worried, but she had always had a sense of her limits. How could she be so willful at a time like this? Gu Wenqing said, Yu Fu, this will definitely be a difficult journey for second brother. You are a girl. How could you endure the cold wind and snow? If there really is danger, you won't have the ability to protect yourself and will become a burden for second brother. Even he and Gu Xiang did not dare bring up wanting to go along, much less someone who did not know martial arts like Yu Fu. Yu Fu revealed 2 silver needles from the palm of her hand. They were a bit different from the usual needles that she used. The tips were not slightly cyan, but were blood red. These had been pulled out of a body. Yin Zhang is in the western wing, and these poison needles were pulled from his body. The entire group has been overwhelmed in the mountain forest north of Changzhou. It had previously just been a bad feeling that Gu Xiang had had, but now they had physical evidence. Yin Zhang? He went to Jinling with eldest brother. Why did he return alone? Yu Fu said, on my way to the main room, I saw the gatekeepers carrying Yin Zhang in, and he had these sorts of poison needles stuck in his neck. I could only have them carry him back to the western wing to be treated. He rode around the clock to deliver his message. He said that when he left, eldest brother's group was still alive. Her voice became a little choked. Just how hopeless was the situation that they could only be described as still alive. Their lives were hanging by a thread, and they were in imminent danger. Gu Xiang said, what exactly happened? I need to personally go and ask him. Yu Fu grabbed a hold of him. Don't. He has already passed out and will not wake up for at least 3 days. I left the medicine to treat him with Yao Lan, and she will feed it to him every day. Right now, the most pressing matter is to quickly head to Changzhou to look for them. Bring me along. Only now did they understand that Yu Fu wanting to go was not out of willfulness. Rather, it was because she had no other choice. The enemy had used poison in their attack against Gu Shubai, which resulted in the entire group being overwhelmed. Right now, only Yu Fu's poison abilities would be able to save Gu Shubai's group. Father! Gu Jiugu looked toward him, knowing that he would definitely be unwilling to put Yu Fu in danger, but reality did not wait. Head General, it's not like I don't know any martial arts. Third brother taught me a bit before. I can protect myself. If I don't go, what will happen if eldest brother and sixth brother are poisoned? She lifted the bloody poison needle. This poison is really fierce. Even I don't know the name of it, but it's fortunate that it can be treated based on the body's reaction. If I was not here, I fear that there is not another person in Eastern Ling who could treat that poison. In other words, without her, Gu Shubai and the others were guaranteed to be dead. All right, you go with Jiugu. Everyone let out a sigh of relief, and Gu Jiugu quickly cupped his hands in a salute. Son will immediately go and pick out some troops. Yu Fu, quickly go and prepare your medicine kit. Yes. Watching the two quickly leave, Gu Wenqing and Gu Xiang could only stand around and feel anxious. But they knew that they were not the ones feeling the most miserable. It was Gu Huaijiang. He did not know if 2 of his sons were alive or dead, and another son and daughter would be rushing there to provide assistance. Gu Jiugu was fine, but Yu Fu was too young and had a frail body. Just falling into the river during spring was enough to make her fall ill, much less such cold conditions with heavy snow and strong winds. He closed his eyes and began thinking. He closed his mouth and did not speak. After a long time passed. You guys also go and take a look. If you can help with something, especially over in the western wing. It looked like he resolutely agreed to Yu Fu's request, but he still could not overcome his fatherly feelings. He merely suppressed it in his heart and did not give it a voice. Gu Wenqing consoled him, saying, Father, please be at ease. Second brother will definitely take good care of Yu Fu. He gave Gu Xiang a look, and the two quietly exited the room. Gu Huaijiang was left alone inside the room. Looking out through the doorway, the sky was dark. It was the darkest hour before dawn. They just needed to wait until dawn. The dawn light was still bleary atop the high city walls of the capital. Armored soldiers stood guard up there. Suddenly hearing the sound of horses' hooves roaring like thunder, cavalry could be seen coming down the road. There were so many that it was hard to tell at a glance, but nothing sounded out of place. The war horses clad in claret armor were strong and well-fed. The soldiers riding them had their backs straight and were very alert. Such elite troops were rarely seen in the capital, and only the man leading the troops was young and handsome, and there was a young girl seated in front of him on the horse. There was a thick cloak wrapped around her, not letting the slightest bit of wind get in and hiding her face. The young man rode forward on his horse and revealed a golden token in his hand. The city guards looked at it carefully and immediately half-kneeled. "Greetings, Lord Marquis Gu." The golden decree of Marquis Gu's manor had never been brought out lightly, thus something must be happening inside the country's borders. "I am the second son of Marquis Gu's manor. I have been ordered to lead 500 troops on a mission outside the city. Quickly open the city gates. Quickly, open the city gates." The general of the guards loudly shouted, and the tall city gates were pushed open by 7 or 8 guards on each side. Gu Jiugu quickly rode out first on his horse. Behind him, 500 elite soldiers followed him out in an orderly fashion. Once everyone had departed, a deputy guard asked, "General, mobilizing over 500 troops requires approval from the Board of War. Why did you not ask the second young sir if they had the approval from the Board of War?" The general watched the horses ride off. "If there was an approval from the Board of War, how could I not have been informed of something as large as 500 troops leaving the city?" "You mean to say that there was no approval?" Then, the general looked at him. "So what if there was no approval? That is a first-rank general and a marquis." Once he brought out Marquis Gu's golden decree, not to mention mobilizing 500 troops, but even if it was 5,000 or 50,000, nobody could stop him. At the crack of dawn, the carriage from Marquis Gu's manor had already been waiting outside the entrance to the palace for quite some time. The palace gates were opened, and General of the Imperial Guards, Meng Fei, personally came over to the carriage, cupping his hands in apology. "Lord Marquis Gu, I am truly sorry. According to law, the palace's gates had to remain closed until this time. I've troubled you by keeping you waiting for such a long time." Gu Huaijiang stepped out of the carriage. It couldn't be helped. The palace's rules cannot be ignored. It was this marquis who came too early. It's unrelated to Lord Meng. Meng Fei became even more courteous. "This lowly official has said too much. Lord Marquis must have some urgent matters and came to see His Majesty personally?" This Majesty previously said that if Lord Marquis Gu came to look for His Majesty, there is no need to observe the rules about the opening time of the palace gates. Lord Meng has said this before, and this Marquis has explained it to Lord Meng before. His Majesty said this for fear of delaying information about some urgent situation during wartime. It currently is not wartime, and this Marquis cannot use that privilege lightly. After saying this, he nodded to him, and Meng Fei responded in kind, performing a respectful salute. "Take care, Lord Marquis Gu." With the snowy backdrop, his parting figure appeared very small, but it was also so mighty that it was hard to look directly at him. It snowed all night, and Lord Marquis Gu is getting old, yet he still continues to observe the rules and wait outside the palace. Not to mention waiting outside for a couple of hours. But His Majesty clearly granted him permission to enter the palace in his carriage, yet he still entered on foot. Ha! Only someone who never became arrogant from his achievements would suit the position of head general and marquis, right? A nearby subordinate said, "That's right. Lord Marquis Gu has never entered the palace in a carriage. From the moment that he arrived outside the palace, my lord has been talking about reporting it, and His Majesty would definitely open the gates for him. Yet he would not. My lord cannot be blamed for it, and His Majesty definitely would not blame my lord." "Nonsense. Am I afraid of His Majesty blaming me?" Meng Fei rolled his eyes at him. "Lord Marquis Gu's noble character is something that you can only understand after another 20 years of self-reflection." Gu Huaijiang arrived outside Emperor Ning's palace and was brought to wait in a side hall by Emperor Ning's personal servant, eunuch Gao. "Lord Marquis, please wait. His Majesty only just woke and is getting changed." He personally brought up the tea, and Gu Huaijiang received it with both hands. "I've troubled eunuch Gao. It was this Marquis who came too early and disturbed His Majesty's rest. His Majesty has not been sleeping as well as in the past, yet it was disturbed by me. It's because he has not been sleeping as well as before that His Majesty woke up early. He was not woken by Lord Marquis. The sound of the bead curtain came from the back, and Gu Huaijiang stood up from his seat. Emperor Ning quickly walked over. Huaijiang, what happened? We heard that you have been waiting outside the palace gates for 2 hours. What urgent matter would have you so anxious? Gu Huaijiang flicked his sleeves and partially kneeled. Not even Emperor Ning could get him to stand up. This subject selected 500 soldiers to leave the city for Changzhou. My son, Shubai, was attacked in Changzhou, and his situation is unclear. Only one of my subordinates was able to escape. Because of the urgent situation, there was no time to inform the Board of War, and this subject had my second son, Jiugu, leave the city with my golden decree. Emperor Ning opened his mouth. When did this happen? It happened overnight before the sun came up. Emperor Ning, anxious, said, We are not asking about that. We are talking about Shubai. When did it happen? We heard that he and Gu Yi went to escort Madame Gu and the related young miss back to Jinling. How could he suddenly have been attacked when everything was fine? Who would dare to do this? Gu Huaijiang was being personally helped up by Emperor Ning, thus could do nothing but stand up. Based on what the soldier who had escaped, Yin Zhang, said, on their way back, all 40 of the troops led by Shubai were struck by poison needles in a forest north of Changzhou. He charged out of the encirclement and rushed back to request support. After arriving at Marquis Gu's manor, he quickly passed out. It was fortunate that Yu Fu was there to save him. Such an urgent matter. Why did you not tell us sooner? Jiugu has already left? We will send some imperial physicians to go after them. What will they do if they are struck by poison needles? There's no need, Your Majesty. Yu Fu has gone with Jiugu. The group left the capital in haste and rode without rest. There was no end to the snow or wind, as they felt like knives on their faces. Even Gu Jiugu's face looked like it had been frozen. Aside from occasionally asking Yu Fu if she was cold, he did not do anything else. Naturally, Yu Fu was not cold. Before setting out, Auntie Li and the maidservants wrapped her up in thick layers. In the end, a large fox fur cloak was added on top. She looked as if she had been wrapped up in a large ball, and she just hoped that she would not roll off of Gu Jiugu's horse. If she did roll onto the ground, she might not even be able to stop. Are you hungry? Gu Jiugu's voice came from above her head, and Yu Fu gave a muffled reply. With so many layers, it became hard to hear her clearly. She did her best to reach up and remove the cloak covering her face. Her warm little face was exposed as she exhaled, creating a large white fog. I'm not hungry and can continue. It was truly too stuffy under the cloak. If she waited any longer to expose her face, she would die from the heat before she died from the cold. When the mobilized troops arrived outside Suzhou City, the sky was dark, and Gu Jiugu pulled his horse to a stop. There's no moon out tonight. Traveling overnight in the snow with troops is not safe. It would be best to stop and rest here for now. When the clouds part, we can continue on our way. The group had traveled at a lightning-quick pace. While he had been worried about Gu Shubai and Gu Yi, he was also worried that something might happen to his own group. Fortunately, these 500 were well-trained, and they had even more experience with traveling long distances than he did. On the way to Suzhou, nothing had gone wrong. Only, Gu Jiugu personally helped Yu Fu down from the horse. You must be tired, right? Does anything hurt? Since you don't know how to ride a horse, with the horse keeping up such a high pace, you must be sore all over. Yu Fu leaped to the ground and brought down her medicine kit first. She then began to examine its contents. Along the way, she had been hearing some clinking sounds, and she had been worried that the bottles of medicine inside would shatter. Luckily, they were all fine. I'm fine. As long as these bottles of medicine aren't broken, it's fine. In truth, her limbs hurt so much that they were feeling numb. When she reached out to examine the bottles, her hands were slightly trembling, and Gu Jiugu had seen it. Since she herself was unwilling to admit it, he would not expose her. Quickly, sit down and eat some dried rations. The soldiers quickly and nimbly started some fires, melting the snow to water. They just ate the ratios with some hot water. They were too hard to bite through. Thus they were soaked in the hot water, then stuffed whole into their mouths. The form was inelegant, but there was nothing that could be done about it at present. Yu-Fu copied them, breaking the rations into smaller portions and tossing them into her mouth. It was like sucking on a rock, and she hastily brought the hot water to her mouth. Gu Jiugu quickly snatched it away. The water just finished boiling. Are you not afraid of burning your mouth? You're so cold that your hands have lost all sense of feeling. You couldn't even tell how hot the water was. He handed his wineskin over to Yu-Fu. Here, this wine is warm. Your entire body will feel warm after drinking it. Wine. Yu-Fu hesitated for a moment. She had never drank wine before. Master said that young children can't drink wine. I'll wait for the water to cool down a little before drinking it. He was talking about the pampered little child growing up in Immortal's Valley, not the Yu-Fu who is riding with a group of soldiers overnight. If you don't drink it, you will definitely freeze overnight. Out in the wilderness, the snow continued to fall and cold wind continued to blow. This sort of cold could not be blocked by any number of furs. She would need to warm up from the inside. Yu-Fu looked behind her. The soldiers were also passing around wineskins. One person had their head tilted back and poured a bit into his mouth. The Gu family's military had a rule that the military should not drink unless celebrating a victory. Today, everyone had broken this rule. It could be seen that Gu Jiugu's words were not an exaggeration. They were the truth. Yu-Fu bit her lip, then snatched the wineskin from his hand. Throwing her head back, she downed a large mouthful. Cough! It was so spicy that tears began to well up in her eyes. All of the soldiers looked in her direction, revealing gratified smiles. Gu Jiugu quickly handed her a bowl of water with one hand and patted her back with the other. It will get better soon. It will get better soon. The stronger the alcohol, the more it warms the body. Yu-Fu gulped down the water, but her throat was still stinging from the spiciness. Second brother, my voice? Oh no, from the time that she was a child, she had never had such strong wine. Thus her tender throat had become hoarse from the spiciness. Gu Jiugu slightly lifted an eyebrow and held her hand. Finally, she stopped shivering. Have you eaten enough? After you've eaten your fill, put your clothes back on. Don't get cold. Out in the wilderness, there was no cover. He could only have Yu-Fu lean against a large rock to block some of the wind. He then covered her in a cloak and hid her under him. Having been wrapped up tightly, only Yu-Fu's little face was exposed. Her face was red, as the wine from earlier had begun to warm her up. When she woke, the sky was clear, and she was already on the horse. Second brother, where are we? We will be arriving at Changzhou very soon. Gu Jiugu looked down at her with a smile. You got drunk and never woke up the entire time. This was my first time seeing someone sleep so soundly while riding a horse. It seems that the wine was not wasted. Yu-Fu shook her head and removed the hood of her cloak to try and wake up a little from the cold wind. We were able to reach Changzhou in just 1 day and 1 night. So fast. Eldest brother and the others must still be waiting for us. We will definitely be able to find them. As she said this, she pulled out a small brocade box and carefully opened it. What is this? Gu Jiugu lowered his head to look down and immediately tightened his grip on the reins. Inside the brocade box was a small silk cocoon. It looked like a silkworm cocoon, but its body was red. It's a Gu butterfly, one that has not yet hatched. If it can hatch, it will be able to smell the poison, and we will be able to quickly find eldest brother's group. Yu-Fu's brow furrowed. Placing a finger in her mouth, she bit down. A bead of blood immediately appeared on her snow-white skin. She squeezed the drop of blood onto the cocoon, and the red cocoon became darker and darker until it eventually became transparent. Gu Jiugu reached a hand over, but was immediately slapped away by Yu-Fu. Don't touch it. It's poisonous. Just as she said this, a rustling came from inside the cocoon, as a fiery red butterfly emerged and flew from the box. It fluttered above Yu-Fu's head for a moment, then continued to fly forward. Yu-Fu hastily said, "We need to follow it. We will be able to find eldest brother's group." The small butterfly flew extremely fast. Gu Jioga's group had to push their horses to ride as fast as possible to barely keep up. When they were about to enter Changzhou's borders, it did not fly north of the city like Yin Zhang had said. Instead, it passed around Changzhou City and went below a cliff. Gu Jiogu had been urging his horse this entire time while calculating the location. This butterfly is taking us toward a shortcut. Above this cliff should be the northern forest that Yin Zhang had spoken of. Everyone looked up upon hearing this. Above, there was a large forest, thus it was indeed possible. Look! Yu Fu stood up on the horse and pointed into the distance. The butterfly had begun circling a creek where the ice had melted. Everyone rushed forward. The ground was covered in corpses that were all wearing the same uniforms as them. They were soldiers from the Gu family's army, and all of the bodies had poison needles sticking out of them. There were also many wounds of all sizes. Before they died, they must have gone through a brutal battle. The young general and the 6th young sir are not among them. There are only 35 corpses. Aside from Yin Zhang, there were another 4 soldiers who escaped. Gu Jiogu looked up toward the top of the cliff. It might not be that they escaped. They might be sheltered somewhere at the top of the cliff. We will split into 2 groups. One will search the top of the cliff, and the other will search the bottom of the cliff. Yu Fu said, "No, eldest brother and the others were also struck by the poison needles. They are definitely at the bottom of the cliff. Otherwise, the butterfly would not have continued circling down here. It's not just eldest brother and his group. I'm guessing that the attackers are also at the bottom of the cliff, and they're looking for them. The attackers would also have the smell of poison on them." Everyone instantly became fierce, as they all understood the meaning behind Yu Fu's words. They absolutely had to find Gu Shubai's group before the assassins, or it would be too late. The 500 troops split into 4 groups and went in separate directions to look for traces of Gu Shubai. Yu Fu stayed close to Gu Jiaoge. She tightly hugged her medicine kit, while she wore a solemn expression. The forest below the cliff was even denser than the forest at the top. Where would Gu Shubai and his group be? Those assassins should have been searching for them for quite some time. Could they have found them already? The fiery red butterfly fluttered through the trees and would occasionally lead them backward. One soldier said, "Second young sir, young Miss Yu Fu, is this butterfly okay or not?" Yu Fu was just as anxious. Its circling around means that the smell of poison has been spread all around the forest. The places that we've gone are likely where eldest brother's group has been. It's also possible that it was where the assassins were, and it is smelling the poison fumes that they left behind. Everyone looked around. Unfortunately, the snow from last night had already melted, and there were no footprints to be seen. Gu Jiogu looked everywhere when he noticed a glint of silver from the corner of his eyes. It was a very familiar glint. He turned his head to look more carefully, then pointed at a tree. "Yu Fu, isn't this the poison needle that you found stuck in Yinzhang?" "This is it." Yu Fu came forward to try and pull the silver needle out, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not pull it out. Gu Jiogu used a corner of his sleeve to cover his hand and pulled it out. This needle had been stuck so deep that it did not look like it had been thrown casually, nor had it been stuck in there accidentally. Yu Fu suddenly thought of something. This was left here by eldest brother. This is definitely a sign for us. Aside from eldest brother, who else would have the inner strength to have the needle pierce so far into the tree trunk? When Gu Shubai had taught Yu Fu the flying needle for the first time, he had done it on the martial arts training ground, and Gu Jiogu had personally seen it. The head of the needle was pointing further into the valley below the cliff. Gu Jiogu waved to the people behind him. "Let's go." After the butterfly got deeper into the forest, it became more and more precise, leading the group to a cave. It circled around near the cave for a while, and just as everyone was about to enter, they heard a strange sound come from the forest. It was definitely not the sound of the wind blowing through the trees. "Yu Fu, go with the butterfly into the cave to take a look. Leave this place to us." Yu Fu hastily said, "Be careful of poison needles." Regardless of what sort of people the assassins in this forest were, the 500 troops from the Gu family army would kill whatever it met. After saying this, she ran toward the cave. Inside the pitch-black cave, the sound of her footsteps echoed. "Eldest brother, Are you guys here? It's you, Fu. At this moment, the assassins should be fighting with Gu Zhouge's group outside the cave. Thus the group inside would have to be Gu Shubai's. She just hoped that they were still alive, and that the poison had not completely filled their veins. However, the only reply that she received was her own echo. After a long moment, a faint voice came from the darkness, and Yu Fu subconsciously took a step back before seeing a dark figure rush toward her. Where did this assassin come from, even pretending to be our Yu Fu? Thump! Yu Fu was knocked to the ground by that dark figure, and she grimaced from the pain. He could still fly, which made it clear that he had not been poisoned. Cough, cough. Sixth brother. It's me. I'm really Yu Fu. In the inky darkness of the cave, Yu Fu could hear that it was Gu Yi's voice, but Gu Yi could not tell that it was Yu Fu's voice. Her throat had become a little hoarse from the wine and had not yet recovered. Her voice was completely different from usual. Now that Gu Yi was in a state of extreme nervousness, he was even more incapable of telling that it was her. He froze and only climbed off of Yu Fu after a long pause. You're really little Yu Fu? In the darkness, his hands felt around Yu Fu's face and only let go after a long time had passed. You really are beautiful. Sure enough, it is our little Yu Fu. Why is your voice different? A light suddenly illuminated the inside of the cave. Gu Shubai held a torch in one hand and weakly held his chest with the other. Yu Fu, you saw Yinzheng? Yu Fu went over to support him. I saw him. He's still alive. Second brother is leading a group of 500 cavalrymen outside the cave. Sixth brother, hold the torch. I will treat eldest brother's poison. Gu Shubai's complexion was not good. It was immediately clear that the poison had begun to spread. Yes, the inside of the cave was dark, but Yu Fu's technique was practiced and exquisite, and she quickly suppressed the poison. She handed over the medicine to treat the poison that she had brought along to Gu Shubai. It's fortunate that eldest brother has great martial ability and immense inner energy, which did not allow the poison to spread too quickly. But you must keep in mind that you currently cannot use your inner energy. The poison must be completely cleansed first, and that will need at least 10 days. Gui said, eldest brother blocked a poison needle for me at a critical moment, or that needle would have hit my throat, and I fear I would have been dead long ago. If not for this, eldest brother would not be so poisoned that he could not move. We've been hiding in this cave for 2 days and knew that someone would find us today. He had thought that it was an assassin and never thought that Yu Fu's group would arrive so soon. Gu Shubai weakly smiled. You must be exhausted from the journey through the wind and snow, right? Is your voice a result of the cold? When Yu Fu had entered, he could tell that they were her footsteps. Unfortunately, he was too weak and could not stop Gui from rushing forward. Yu Fu cleared her throat. It's not from the cold. It was second brother who gave me some wine, and the spice did it. Gu Shubai's eyes flickered for a moment, then quickly returned to normal. It was only now that they noticed the sound of fighting coming from outside the cave, swords clashing. This is bad. Though second brother has many people, the enemy has many poison needles. I'm going out to help second brother. Gui said this and began to run out but was stopped by Yu Fu, who grabbed a corner of his clothes. You take care of eldest brother here. I'll go. This poison can be said to be unmatched in Eastern Ling. Unfortunately, I think nothing of it. To poison the people at my side, I will have them see who is more poisonous. Yu Fu spat out these vicious words, then turned around and walked toward the entrance of the cave. With her sudden outburst, Gui forgot to stop her. Gu Shubai leaned against the wall of the cave, using the faint glow from the torch to watch Yu Fu gradually get further and further away. The small young girl's back was straight, and her shadow was stretched long by the flame. Her manner was as imposing as the lofty clouds above the mountain peaks, or as tall as the pines on a mountain peak. It made people look up to her. Gu Shubai was momentarily stunned. Gu-yi, do you get the feeling that Yu Fu grew a lot taller? Outside the cave, the assassins and soldiers were clustered together in a fight. Their swords looked a little green, which made it clear that they had been coated in poison. While the members of the Gu family army outnumbered the enemy, they were fighting with a handicap and could not gain an advantage. What Gui had said was true. Not only did they have poison needles, but they also were not few in numbers. Yufu slightly squinted her eyes and thought back to what Gu Shubai had said when teaching her the flying needle technique. She needed to be calm and exert a special amount of force on her wrist. She had trained repeatedly in the Western Wings corridor, and was it not all for the sake of today? For the sake of protecting the people that she wished to protect. With a flick of her wrist, poison needles flew up from between fingers, and 4 assassins instantly fell. Those assassins never reacted, as another 4 needles flew out from Yufu's other hand. Those who were struck also fell. What sort of poison could make a person die just from contact? Their gazes when they looked toward Yufu were as if they were looking at a god of death, full of fear. It was only now that the soldiers of the Gu family army remembered that they had an immortal practitioner of poison on their side. What need was there for them to fear the poison on their enemy's blade? If they got poisoned, Yufu would treat it. In an instant, the army's morale was greatly improved. The brave soldiers on the battlefield were well trained, and they quickly surrounded the assassins before slowly tightening the encirclement. The assassins had already expended all of their energy. Knowing that they could no longer continue the fight, some leaped and flew straight at Yufu. Whoosh! The poison needles flew out from between her fingers, and the assassins flying at her widened their eyes as they dropped from the sky like birds. Gu Jiugu saw her nearby. Did you see eldest brother? They're still alive. As long as they were alive, there were no poisons that Yufu could not treat. Gu Jiugu's confidence instantly skyrocketed, as all of the exhaustion from the hasty travel vanished. He then gave the order, leave one of them alive. Kill the rest. He had already noticed that the poison needles that Yufu used this time were completely different from the one that she had used on Qiting. The assassins who had been struck by these needles did not even get a chance to breathe before dying from the poison. It could be seen just how toxic they were. It seemed that Yufu was really angry this time. Gu Shubai's group was brought to the nearby Changzhou city where they settled down in a local official's manner. The poison that had been in his body was treated by Yufu, but it was not something that would be resolved in just a single night. During the recovery process, he must not exert himself. The prefect of Changzhou, Quan Jiyin, had already allowed the servants to return home. He was also preparing to return to his private home to celebrate the new year when he suddenly heard the news that someone had led 500 cavalrymen into the city under Marquis Gu's golden decree, which caused him to hastily go out and receive them in fear. Upon hearing that Gu Shubai's group had been attacked, he trembled with anger. That damn group of assassins. Why did they have to try and kill members of Marquis Gu's manor in an area under his jurisdiction? Who was out there that did not know that His Majesty favored Marquis Gu's manor? With such a big case happening, it would be hard for him, as the prefect of Changzhou, to escape responsibility for this. These sorts of savage bandits. They actually dare to commit murder in my Changzhou's borders, and their target was the heir to Marquis Gu. This lowly official will definitely investigating those bandits to get revenge for the young sir. It's revenge for the innocent soldiers who died. My eldest brother is still alive and well. But since Lord Prefect has the heart to do it, send people to the bottom of the cliff to gather the corpses. Also, during this time, there's no need to allow outsiders to enter or exit this manor. Quan Jiyin repeatedly agreed. Yes, 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 it's time for the new year. The manor had already stopped official work. If second young sir has any other needs, just tell this lowly official, and this lowly official will definitely do everything possible to accommodate your request. Quan Jiyin had merely said it out of courtesy, but who knew that Gu Jiugu would really make a special request? Have 2 of your loyal maidservants come and serve. Huh, maidservants? With such a large group of old guys, having 2 maidservants come to serve, would it not be like sending lambs into a den of lions? Gu Jiugu slightly furrowed his brow and knew that he was thinking along the wrong lines. My younger sister set out in a hurry and did not bring any maidservants to serve. The army is composed solely of men and cannot provide adequate service, thus I am asking you to bring 2 maidservants in. Quan Jiyin let out a sigh of relief and fawningly smiled. So that was the case. Second young sir, do not worry. This lowly official will go and take care of this immediately. Gu Jiugu watched his parting figure in displeasure before turning around and walking back into the manor. The poison in eldest brother's body is slowly dissipating, but the poison penetrated too deep. I fear that he will not be able to move for a few more days. I fear that it will be impossible for us to return to the manor to celebrate this new year. Gu Shubai lay in bed, and his complexion was already far better than it was when they were in the cave. He could not hear the tone of regret in Yufu's voice and stupidly said, "Celebrating the new year outside is quite nice. Even at my age, I have never celebrated it away from home. Moreover, I'm not doing it alone. The four of us are together." Yufu glanced at him. "Sixth brother, you're a little too heartless. You have no idea how worried the head general is about you, and he hasn't personally seen eldest brother alive. He definitely won't be able to enjoy a happy New Year's celebration." It was only now that Gui realized what she was worried about and immediately became dejected. "That's right. Gu Xiang didn't see me for a few days and started having nightmares, even dreaming something as inauspicious as me dying. Without me there to celebrate the new year with him, he will definitely be extremely heartbroken, haha." He actually threw in a chuckle. It was rare that Yufu would spout nonsense with him as she glanced outside. "Where's second brother? Wasn't one of the assassins kept alive?" "Second brother went to interrogate that assassin. I heard that he's quite hard-headed and refuses to speak no matter what. As I see it, those assassins are definitely from Western Kuan." Gu Shubai lay in bed with his eyes closed, and nobody could tell if he was asleep or just resting with his eyes closed. Yufu said, "Why do you say they're from Western Kuan?" Gui had already forgotten that there was a possibility that Yufu was a princess of Western Kuan. Think about it. If it's not Western Kuan who hates our Marquis Gu's manor the most, who could it be? Year after year, Western Kuan invades our Eastern Ling, and it's fortunate that the Gu family's army is stationed at the border to stand guard, pushing them back time and time again. If eldest brother and I died, Marquis Gu's manor would definitely have suffered a huge blow. Of course, the most important one would be eldest brother. He rubbed his nose, adding that last part. Gu Shubai was the heir to Marquis Gu's manor and was the one who would eventually inherit the position of Marquis. They must not be careless. Yufu said, "The special envoy from Western Kuan should have left before the end of the year, but stayed in Eastern Ling for no reason. I also find that very strange. I initially thought that it was Kuan Wushang who intended to steal military secrets from the manor, but going with what you said, I think it's just Kuan Wushang who wants to kill eldest brother. He's envious of eldest brother's engagement to you. Additionally, he's also a disciple of Immortals Valley and your junior disciple. These poison needles were definitely his work." "That's not the case." Gu Shubai had opened his eyes at some point and refuted Guyi's argument. "Kuan Wushang grew up with Yufu. He should be someone who understands Yufu's abilities very well and know that she can deal with this sort of poison very easily. If I was him, I would definitely use a more exotic poison. Yufu, what do you think?" Yufu nodded. "I was thinking the same as eldest brother. Kuan Wushang is a prince of Western Kuan, thus there are people paying attention to every move that he makes in the capital. If he had such a grand plan in place, why is it that we didn't notice anything? On the contrary, I feel that someone knows that he is my junior disciple and deliberately used poison needles to focus our attention on him." This sort of explanation was more coherent, and Gui became pensive but felt that this matter was confusing. Someone wants to kill eldest brother and me, and they want to pass the blame onto Kuan Wushang. Then it shouldn't be someone from Western Kuan. Rather, it would be someone from court in the capital. The members of the court in the capital had always been dissatisfied with Marquis Gu's manor. Even with such a large number of people, it felt like the answer was about to reveal itself. Gu Shubai closed his eyes. Before the truth is uncovered, any suspicion is just speculation. There must not be any declaration. Then who does eldest brother suspect or think it was? Sleep Here for Tonight, Part 5. How's eldest brother? Gu Jiugu walked in through the door with an unhappy expression. Seeing Gu Shubai smile at him from the bed with his complexion greatly improved, he felt much more at ease. Gu Shubai said, "How goes the interrogation with the survivor?" "He had a poison hidden in his tooth. We only employed 2 torture techniques before he could no longer endure and killed himself. He didn't reveal any useful information. This one could be considered as having been kept alive for nothing." It was no wonder his expression looked so poor when he came in, Yu Fu said in surprise. "Having poison hidden in a tooth is the way suicide troops work. When I was in Immortals Valley, I heard about it. That those assassins were suicide troops. It seems that the enemy has even more available than we initially thought." Gu Jiugu said, "Lord Prefect has already ordered the coroner to examine the corpse." "Gu Yi, what exactly happened on that day? Tell me in detail." "After escorting Auntie and Yun Yin back to Jinling, we stayed 1 extra day, then set out for the capital the day after that. On the way there, it was very calm. On the way back, it was also fine. Who knew that when passing through Changzhou, this group would suddenly make an appearance? Thinking about it now, the enemy did not make their move while they were headed to Jinling for the sake of having them lower their guard. Then they would launch a fatal attack. Their attack from the onset was with poison needles. We lost the initiative, and the soldiers that were poisoned quickly lost the strength to fight back. During the fight, eldest brother protected me while descending down the cliff using the vines, then had Yin Zheng return to report on the situation. We hid below the cliff for 2 days, and eldest brother said that we would definitely be unable to continue hiding. When he mentioned Gu Shubai, his voice was still filled with fear. At that time, the poison was circulating in Gu Shubai's body, and he could no longer fight. If they were found by the assassins, the burden of fighting them off would have fallen to him. He was absolutely terrified. It was the first time that he had ever regretted not listening to his father and brothers to train more. So when Yu Fu entered the cave, he was so nervous that he could not even recognize his little sister. Even Yu Fu felt nervous from listening to him. "Eldest brother, how did you know that you would be found today?" Gu Shubai smiled calmly. The area below the cliff was only so large. The assassins had searched for us for 2 days. Even if they felt that the cave was too conspicuous for us to be hiding inside, after searching everywhere else and coming up empty, they would consider this most dangerous place as the safest place. Gu Jiugu was quite frustrated with his confidence. It turned out that he knew that this cave was conspicuous. What if the assassins had chosen to search the most conspicuous places? Eldest brother really had an amazing strategy. It's fortunate that we had Yu Fu's poison butterfly to lead the way. Otherwise, the ones to find you first today really would have been the assassins. Gu Shubai looked at him sideways. "I still haven't settled my debt with you. Why did you have Yu Fu drink wine?" Gui didn't recognize Yu Fu's voice and nearly gave her a beating from thinking that she was an assassin. The 2 brothers engaged in a verbal dispute. Gui and Yu Fu exchanged a glance, and neither dared to speak. Marquis Gu's manner was strict in its upbringing. When the elders spoke, the 2 youngest no longer had any right to speak. Yu Fu lifted her head to take a look at the 2 when Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu suddenly began laughing. She silently let out a sigh. The relationship between brothers was probably something that she could not understand. "Right, Yu Fu? I had Lord Prefect prepare 2 maidservants to come and take care of you. I fear that we will need to stay in Changzhou for the new year. I have already instructed someone to return and report to father. Thinking about it, they will receive word within a few days." "Maidservants? Have them take care of eldest brother. I don't need others to take care of me." Yu Fu tucked in a corner of Gu Shubai's blanket. When taking care of him, she looked the part. It seemed as though she had grown over the course of a single night. A breath got caught in Gu Jiugu's throat. Why did he feel that Yu Fu's movements were like those of a sister-in-law? Gui gave him a look. "Second brother, let's go out first and leave Yu Fu to take care of eldest brother. Little Yu Fu, I'll go and call your maidservants over." After saying this, he dragged Gu Jiugu toward the outside, but Gu Jiugu was reluctant to leave. It was obvious that he did not want to leave. By the time that he had been dragged to the door, he suddenly remembered what he wanted to say. "Yu Fu, your room has been arranged to be next door to eldest brother's. This will make looking after him easier. The 2 maidservants will be able to take care of you and eldest brother. What do you think of that?" From the bed, Gu Shubai gave him a look that was full of annoyance. "Have you finished speaking? If you have, scram. Gu Jiugu pretended not to see it. There's no need. I will be sleeping here tonight. Yu Fu turned to look at them, as both Gu Jiugu and Gu Yi had their mouths open wide. They were so wide that a whole egg could be stuffed in. She wanted to sleep with eldest brother? Gu Shubai let out a quiet cough, as a faint smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. From the moment he saw Yu Fu in the cave to when they arrived in the manor in Changzhou, he felt that Yu Fu had grown up. She had grown so fast that he could not react. Looking at her now, she was still just a child, completely innocent. It was likely that she had never even thought about how men and women should not sleep together, and them being together would be improper. Gu Jiuge, Yu Fu, you can't. Gu Shubai, then we will do it like that. When you guys go out, close the door. I'm cold. Eldest brother, you're cold? Yu Fu looked at the two with a frown. The two were standing at the entrance with the door open, neither coming in nor going out. It was truly anxiety-inducing. Quickly close the door. Her voice was filled with urgency as Gu Jiuge's heart broke. Why is second brother acting so strange? Yu Fu muttered to herself. She felt more and more that Gu Jiuge was acting strangely. Gu Shubai said, "It's nothing. He must be hungry." Then is eldest brother hungry? The kitchen sent some congee over, but it might not taste very good. Yu Fu looked over at the table. The food box was still there. Upon opening it, a cloud of steam rose. Aside from a pot of congee, there were some side dishes local to Changzhou and a light soup. It did not look very appetizing. It would be great if we were back home. Even if we could not eat fish while sick, there would be some minced pork that could be added to the congee. Yu Fu carefully brought the congee over and neatly placed it on a small stool next to the bed. Gu Shubai said, Changzhou Prefecture cannot be considered wealthy. In addition to this, at this time of year, every family relies on fish and meat. It's not easy to get vegetables. This is already quite good. In the army, there are times when there won't be any food to eat. He leaned over to pick up the bowl, and Yu Fu hastily took it away. You lie down. I'll feed you. As she said this, she scooped up some congee with a small spoon, brought it up to her lips, and gently blew on it. She only brought it to his mouth after the heat had dissipated. She fed him some, and Gu Shubai ate it extremely obediently. Why would you be unable to eat while in the army? Is it if the battle fight's too long that the food ran out? When I was 18, Western Kuan invaded the city of Yunzhou on the border. Father brought me along for the battle. That year, Eastern Ling was suffering from a drought. The harvests were poor, and there was no excess in grain to take in, thus the army did not have enough rations. By the end, we led soldiers in digging for wild herbs. We were on the verge of eating the bark off of trees. It was fortunate that we managed to defeat Western Kuan's army. While he spoke, he had a completely relaxed expression. Yu Fu grimaced. While I was in Immortal's Valley, Master also liked to grow vegetables to feed us. At that time, I didn't find them to taste bad. After coming to Eastern Ling and being able to eat fish and meat every day, I feel that fish and meat taste best. You always ate vegetables while in Immortal's Valley? It's no wonder others said that you looked like you were 10 years old when you first came to Marquis Gu's manor. Gu Shubai reached out and gestured up to Yu Fu's shoulder. At that time, you were roughly this tall. She was in the middle of her growth period. How could she possibly grow tall if she only ate vegetables? It seemed that it was not just Gu Huaijiang who did not know how to raise a daughter. Even the dignified deity of medicine was merely at this level. Sure, you must not let Master hear that. He will definitely be very hurt. In truth, Master treats me very well. In Immortal's Valley, the disciple that he dotes on the most is me. How does he do that? When I left, Master gave me a lot of silver and gold. You must think that Immortal's Valley does not suffer from a lack of money, right? In truth, Master is really poor. The money that he gave me in Yaolan was almost all of his savings. She fed him while they chatted, and the bowl of congee was quickly emptied, but Gu Shubai still wished to continue. Even if he was full, he wished to have another bowl to have Yu Fu continue feeding him. It was always he who took care of her. He had never been taken care of by her like this. This sort of feeling was wonderful, and he did not wish for it to end. Drink some tea, then you should sleep. Sleeping more will allow the poison to quickly dissipate. Sleep? When he had chased away Gu Jiugu and Gu Yi, he was quite happy. Now, he was slightly regretting it. Yu Fu was young and inexperienced. He could not bully her like this. Cough, cough. Yu Fu, where will you sleep? Yu Fu was in the middle of pouring tea and suddenly turned her head upon hearing this. Who knew what flashed through her mind, as her face suddenly turned red? She knew it. She knew why Gu Jiugu had that expression when he left the room. I will be taking care of you here. It was not because she wanted to sleep in his room. Hold on, before Gu Jiugu had left the room, she seemed to have said that she would be sleeping here. This was quite the misunderstanding. Yu Fu's face was bright red, and Gu Shubai could not stop himself from smiling. She was regretting it now, but it seemed to be too late. PFF. She loudly blew out the candles in the room, leaving only the one at the bedside. She then walked over with a stiff expression. Lifting the blanket, she completely covered Gu Shubai. Sleep. Below the blanket, Gu Shubai let out a muffled laugh. Yu Fu covered herself with a large cloak and sat down next to the bed. Though the manner was simple, Quan Jiyin provided quite a few charcoal braziers, thus the room was not cold. It was just that when Gu Shubai went to sleep, she remained alone in the dim room and quickly began to nod off. There was a thump. Her head landed on the mattress, and the sound of slow and steady breathing rose. Gu Shubai lifted the blanket from his head. I haven't even fallen asleep, so how come you fell asleep first? He sat up straight and covered Yu Fu with a woolen blanket. Seeing her face get squished against the bed, he could not get enough of this sight. Rushing over all the way from Linen to Changzhou, you must be exhausted, right? If this was not the case, why else would Jiugu have let you drink wine? You've actually learned to put up a strong front. You were clearly extremely sleepy, yet you still stayed here to take care of me. In the darkness, he quietly muttered to himself while gently patting Yu Fu's head. Her hair had already become messy. Without Lianzhu present, who would take care of her hair? Yu Fu shuddered. Eldest brother, eldest brother. Her breathing became erratic, but she did not wake. Gu Shubai quietly responded, I'm right here. Her breathing gradually calmed down as she quietly muttered, eldest brother, I'll bring you home. So she was sleep-talking. A reply letter from Marquis Gu's manor arrived. Gu Huaijiang told them to remain in Changzhou and to return after Gu Shubai recovered. After finding out that the young sirs of Marquis Gu's manor would be staying to celebrate the new year, Quan Jiyin became cautious of any problems, as he hurriedly began to prepare all of the things necessary for a New Year's celebration. All manners of New Year's items were prepared, and there was naturally no shortage of things like wine, food, tea, or desserts. He even arranged for many red lanterns to be sent over and hung up throughout the manor. Yu Fu busied herself with taking care of Gu Shubai, while Gu Jiugu busied himself with investigating the origins of the assassins. Only Gu Yi could be considered idle. We've troubled Lord Prefect. You can just leave these things here. Tomorrow night is New Year's Eve. Lord Prefect, go ahead and celebrate the new year properly. We will just make do. This sixth young sir was easy to talk to and much more polite than the second young sir. Quan Jiyin respectfully said, No, no. How could this lowly official go off on my own to celebrate the new year? It's natural that we must help the second young sir with his investigation and have the true mastermind reveal themselves. Oh right, how is the eldest young sir doing? Eldest brother has Yu Fu personally taking care of him. He's fine. We've troubled Lord Prefect with worrying about it. Quan Jiyin hastily said, Is it that young Miss Yu Fu who was personally adopted by Lord Marquis? Previously, the second young sir requested that 2 maidservants from this lowly official. Were they to take care of this young miss? Gui glanced at him. That's right. Marquis Gu's manor only has this one young miss. What of it? Hee, young sirs might be able to make do, but young Miss Yu Fu is an important guest and cannot just make do. This lowly official has ordered some new clothes and some desserts. I hope that sixth young sir will pass this along to young Miss Yu Fu and won't disdain this lowly official's consideration. After saying this, he lifted his hand, and 4 to 5 people came forward carrying brocade boxes. The clothes that were revealed were brightly colored and had exquisite embroideries. It seemed that Quan Jian had done his homework and knew who in Marquis Gu's manor was shown the most favor. Gui casually said, "Lord Prefect has been considerate. Yu Fu loves liveliness the most. If there can be some firecrackers on the night of New Year's Eve, she will definitely be extremely happy." Firecrackers? By the time that Quan Jian came back to his senses, Gui had already led the servants toward the inner courtyard. He repeatedly cupped his hands and bowed toward Gui's parting figure. This lowly official understands and will go take care of it immediately. On the night of New Year's Eve, the 4 siblings from the Gu family gathered around in the inner courtyard's hall and ate together. The fragrant dishes on the table had both meat and vegetables, and there were quite a few that were specialties from the capital. The preparations had been very thorough. Gui looked at the table full of food, but found it a little hard to eat. In past years, Father would always lead us to the ancestral hall to pay our respects to our ancestors before leading us back to the main hall to eat. After that, everyone would celebrate the new year and stay up all night, only returning to our respective rooms after the sun starts to come up. This year, Marquis Gu's manor only had Gu Huijiang, Gu Hanemo, Gu Wenqing, and Gu Xiang. It would definitely feel very lonely, right? Gu Jiugu picked some vegetables for him. After a few more days when eldest brother has recovered, we can go and pay our respects to our ancestors then. It's all the same. I'm sure that our ancestors will understand. That's true. If our ancestors knew that eldest brother was poisoned, they would definitely be like father and would rather see eldest brother stay put for a few days longer. Yu Fu also picked up some vegetables for him and took this chance to take a glance at him. Why did he have so much to say? "Ah, eldest brother, Yu Fu said that the poison in your body has not fully dissipated, so you won't be eating this shrimp, right?" Gui already had a pile of food in his own bowl, yet he was going to steal from Gu Shubai, bullying him while he did not have any strength in his hands. All of the things that he stole were highly coveted. Gui stuffed a large amount of food into his mouth. Suddenly lifting his head, he saw Yu Fu peeling a shrimp. After she finished peeling it, she placed it in Gu Shubai's bowl. "Eldest brother, eat this one." Without any comparison, there was no harm done. Gui suddenly found that the stolen shrimp no longer tasted as good. In the end, one peeled by Yu Fu would taste best. "Little Yu Fu, how about you peel one for me too? Are your hands unable to exert any strength too?" Gu Shubai looked at him. His eyes filled with a look that asked him if he remembered who it was that blocked that poison needle. Gui resentfully shut his mouth. Gu Jiugu poured wine for everyone. Arriving next to Yu Fu, he paused for a moment, then moved around her. "Pour some tea for the young miss." He did not dare to give Yu Fu any wine. Gu Shubai's gaze would kill him. The maidservant came forward to pour tea, and Gu Shubai said, "I will also be drinking tea. Though strong wine warms the body, I worry that it will reduce the effectiveness of the medicine." Yu Fu looked at him with a smile. "Drinking too much wine is bad for the body. Drinking less is best." Gu Jiugu coughed a couple of times. Gui said, "It seems that only second brother and I will be drinking wine." "Second brother. Cheers." Gu Jiugu covered his wine cup and gave the maidservant a look. "I will also drink tea. Pour a cup of tea for this young sir." The other 3 looked at him in unison. He had always drank wine, and he was known for never getting drunk no matter how much he drank. Yet he wanted to drink tea today? If Gu Jiugu did not drink wine, was he still Gu Jiugu? With a calm expression, he looked at Gu Yi. "What are you drinking at such a young age for? Drinking too much wine is not good for the body, so drink a little less." These words sounded strangely familiar. Gui had a dazed expression. "But second brother, you're 24. The things that Yu Fu did not like, he would also start to dislike them from this moment forward." Just as Gu Jiugu finished speaking, the silence in the courtyard was quickly disrupted by a bang, which scared everyone. "Happy New Year! Happy New Year!" Quan Jiyin walked through the gate with a string of firecrackers. I heard that young Miss Yu Fu likes the sound of firecrackers. Thus this lowly official specifically had someone set them off in the courtyard. Would young Miss Yu Fu like to set some off? Who told him that Yu Fu liked firecrackers? Gui saw that things were not going well and stood up from his seat. Lord Prefect, I'll go set off firecrackers with you. I like firecrackers the most. Let's go, go. Huh, this? How is it? Yu Fu sat next to the bed and checked Gu Shubai's pulse with her brow slightly furrowed. Gu Jiuge, Gu Yi, and Quan Ji Yin were all standing off to the side and waiting for her verdict. Eldest brother, are your hands still feeling weak? Gu Shubai already looked like a normal person, yet for some reason, his limbs remained weak. Yu Fu also found this strange. Normally speaking, the poison that was in your body has mostly cleared up, so you should have recovered fully. Could it be that there was something that I missed? Gui was given a fright. That wouldn't be, right? When we got the last letter from the manor, it said that Yin Zhang had already recovered. Could it be that the poison that affected eldest brother and Yin Zhang were different? Yin Zhang had already recovered? That meant that Yu Fu's diagnosis had been accurate. What exactly was the problem? She began to look him over from top to bottom. Grabbing his hand, she flipped it back and forth to try and find something. But no matter how hard she looked, she could not find anything. Gu Jiugu seemed to have noticed something. Lord Prefect, there aren't really any problems here. You can go first. Quan Jian froze. Huh? Oh, this lowly official will go out and take a look. I will have the kitchen prepare some pastries for everyone. After he left, Gu Jiugu was about to speak when Gu Shubai suddenly stretched lazily. Sure enough, second brother is smart. Once Lord Prefect left, I feel as though all of my strength has returned. Tidy things up, and we will return to the capital tomorrow. Gu Jiugu gnashed his teeth. What was that about different poisons? He was clearly pretending to be sick when he was fine. He coldly snorted. If Yu Fu hadn't been staying in eldest brother's room to take care of him every night, he would have recovered a few days earlier. Gui and Yu Fu exchanged a look with helpless expressions. The second brother, who had always looked up to the eldest brother, had been acting a little strange recently. Why was he even more argumentative than Gu Xiang and Gu Yi? On the 5th day of the new year, everyone set off for the capital. By the time that they arrived, it was already the 10th. Gu Hanemo led a group to receive them outside the city. Seeing a large procession of cavalry behind a carriage, he knew that it had to be them. How's eldest brother? He rode his horse forward. Gu Jiugu was at the front of the formation and gestured toward the carriage behind him with his chin. He's in the carriage. Don't worry. Yu Fu's there. A corner of the curtain was lifted, and Gui joyfully poked his head out. Third brother, we're here. Gu Hanemo looked at his complexion. Wasn't it said that you were neither poisoned nor injured? Can I not ride in the carriage if I'm not hurt? Eldest brother and little Yu Fu are riding in the carriage, and second brother said that I was given too much of a shock, thus I must take care of myself. That's why I'm riding in the carriage. The corner of Gu Hanmo's lips twitched as he looked over at Gu Jiugu. A man's heart was hard to understand, and he was actually able to come up with this method to keep eldest brother and Yu Fu from having some alone time. Vicious, too vicious. Inside the carriage, Gu Shubai had his eyes closed and was resting. Everyone is fine. Let's return to the city first and chat later. This matter still needs to be reported to father in detail. Gu Hanemo quietly admired his tolerance. Eldest brother really was worthy of being eldest brother and was far more magnanimous than second brother. He rode his horse over to Gu Jiugu's side. While riding toward the city, he said to Gu Jiugu, second brother, I understand those dark feelings that you have, but eldest brother has not yet fully recovered. By putting that brat Gu Yi in the carriage, how can it be good to disrupt eldest brother's rest? Gu Hanemo rarely spoke this much, yet when he did, it was about some dark feelings. Gu Jiugu was displeased. My dark feelings? It's you who doesn't know eldest brother. Gu Hanemo shook his head and cut him off. Second brother, you should conduct yourself properly. This tone, it was clear that he fully trusted Gu Shubai. No matter what Gu Shubai did, it was right. Gu Jiugu was frustrated and subconsciously brought out a wineskin. Thinking back to what Yu Fu had said on New Year's Eve, he put it back in a daze. He could not drink, especially in front of Yu Fu. Otherwise, he would be losing too much. Father. Upon seeing Gu Huaijiang, Gu Shubai grandly greeted him and was forcefully helped back up. Have you fully recovered? Son is fine. It's thanks to second brother, and Yu Fu arriving at such a timely moment. And Gu Yi? Son is also fine. It's thanks to eldest brother protecting me that I am perfectly fine. Gu Huaijiang looked behind them and hurried over in large steps. Yu Fu, did you get cold along the way? I didn't. When setting out, I was wearing quite a bit and was quite warm. She was indeed warm, but the faint hoarseness of her voice was still caught by Gu Huaijiang. What happened to your throat? Was it from the cold? Gu Jiugu thought to himself that this was not good. Gu Huaijiang's ears were really keen, even noticing that something was off after roughly a dozen days later. Yu Fu hastily said, It's because I was afraid of getting cold that I stole some wine from second brother, and the spice affected my throat. It's already fine. She had become accustomed to taking the blame for Gu Yi and Gu Xiang, knowing that Gu Huaijiang would not punish her but would not hold back when dealing with Gu Yi and the others. That was why she attracted all of the blame on herself. Gu Huaijiang knew that she was understanding, thus he just looked over at Gu Jiugu but did not argue. You guys have been traveling around in haste and must be tired. Go back and rest first. This year's visit to pay respects to our ancestors has not yet been conducted, as we have been waiting for you guys. Gu Huaijiang had actually delayed the visit to pay respects to the family elders to wait for them. After everyone acknowledged this, Gu Huaijiang continued. Yu Fu has never been to the ancestral hall before. Bring her along with you later. What? His meaning was to have Yu Fu enter the ancestral hall? Head General, do I need to go too? Yu Fu pointed at her nose and was quite surprised. That's right. You will go together. Yu Fu looked over at Gu Shubai and the others in confusion, but they too were confused. She thought for a moment then said, I heard that Eastern Ling's rules do not allow for girls to enter the ancestral hall, not even the ancestral halls of the families that they marry into. Head General, wouldn't it be breaking the rules to allow me to enter? Rules are inflexible, while people are. Even if you are unwilling to call me father, I still treat you and your brothers the same. When everyone heard what Gu Huaijiang said, they knew that he was just lying. When had he ever treated Yu Fu the same as them? It was clear that he favored her more. But I heard Sister Su say that not even Auntie was allowed to enter Marquis Gu's Manor's ancestral hall. She was a proper young miss of Marquis Gu's Manor. She had been born from the same mother as Gu Huaijiang and was his closest relative. Gu Huaijiang said, before eldest sister got married, the manor was still under the previous Lord Marquis, and I could not go against his orders. After eldest sister got married, I allowed her into the ancestral hall to pay her respects to our ancestors, but she kept to the rules set by the previous Lord Marquis and did not go in. Now, I get to make the decisions in Marquis Gu's Manor, and these bad customs should have been discarded long ago. Daughters were also part of the future generation, and daughters were shown more favor than the sons in Marquis Gu's Manors. If they could not even set foot in the ancestral hall, how could they be considered favored? Gu Shubai said, Yu Fu, father has his own set of ideals, so just go along with it. Come, let's go get cleaned up and changed first. He held Yu Fu's hand, and the two left first. The remaining people just looked at each other. Didn't eldest brother previously say that he needed to be less intimate and be more proper since father announced their engagement? Why does it seem like he's even worse than before? Gu Xiang immediately noticed this important information, and Gui hastily said, what can this be considered? Before eldest brother fully recovered, Yu Fu, Gu Jiugu acted promptly and covered his mouth. Gui struggled to break free but could not and grumbled in complaint. Father, Gui is tired. I'll bring him back to wash up. After saying this, he dragged Gui out. Gu Xiang was stunned then quickly followed him out with Gu Wenqing. In the hall, only Gu Huaijiang and Gu Hanemo remained. Hanemo, father suddenly feels that of my sons, You're the most mature and steady. Having suddenly been praised, Gu Hanemo looked at him in confusion. Hearing word of Gu Shubai's group returning, the family's elders came to visit. The heir to Marquis Gu's manor being assassinated was not a trivial matter. They needed to see that he was fine for themselves to feel at ease. For the sake of waiting for your return, Lord Marquis delayed the visiting of the ancestors. We also decided to wait for your return to go and pay respects to the ancestors. It's best for the family to be together. It turned out that it was not just Marquis Gu's manor, as everyone else in the clan had delayed their visit to the ancestral hall to wait for them. They could hardly be blamed. Every year, the visit to the ancestral hall was done with the entire clan. Without Marquis Gu's manor, it would not feel right. Thus they decided to just wait until Gu Shubai's group returned a few days later. Little Yu Fu, let's go quickly. Everyone is waiting. Gu Xiang and Gu Yi's group led Yu Fu over, and the clan's elders came over to check on Gu Yi. They were only satisfied after finding out that he was fine. Sixth young sir, did you not know that we were going to pay respects at the ancestral hall today? Why have you brought young Miss Yu Fu with you? The clan's elders looked at Yu Fu in a bit of surprise. Who in the clan did not know that Gu Huaijiang and the 6 young sirs all doted on Yu Fu to no end. Moreover, she was indeed a clever talent and very obedient. They had even heard that she had saved Gu Huaijiang's life. This time, it was also thanks to her rushing out to Changzhou that the poison in Gu Shubai's body was treated. For such a girl to be loved so dearly was something that ought to happen. Gui said, Uncle might not know, but it was father who told us to bring Yu Fu. He wants her to come with us to pay our respects to our ancestors. What? How could a girl enter the ancestral hall? Once these words came out, the expressions on the clan's elders changed. The way that they looked at Yu Fu became unkind. My Eastern Ling is a country that emphasizes etiquette and ethics. Males and females are different in their yin and yang energies. Girls absolutely must not enter the ancestral hall. This is a rule that must not be broken. How can Lord Marquis be so muddled? Yu Fu did not particularly want to go in either, but when she heard this slight toward Gu Huaijiang, she became unhappy. What is there in this world that a male can do that a female can't? The seemingly docile young girl spoke calmly, but her voice was imposing like a strike of thunder. If it was not known that she was the adopted daughter of Gu Huaijiang, others might believe that she was actually Gu Huaijiang's daughter. Based on her imposing manner, she really was just like Gu Huaijiang. Yu Fu lukewarmly said, You said that girls can't enter the ancestral hall and that girls are best not doing anything. Did you know that Western Kuan has female generals who aren't any less courageous than the males, and Northernly has a female prime minister who has controlled the court for over a decade? Since you guys look down on girls so much, why say that the Gu family has always raised sons strictly and daughters lovingly? Head General has always been brilliant, so who dares to say he's muddled? Well said. Well said. 2 chubby youths suddenly squeezed out of the crowd and applauded Yu Fu. It was the 2 brothers, Gu Changsheng and Gu Changming. What Yu Fu said is right. If someone as smart as her can't go into the ancestral hall, what would we go in for? The ancestors have no desire to see us. These words caused everyone to laugh. Gu Shubai looked at them then quietly asked Gu Wenqing, They know Yu Fu? They know her from school. When Yu Fu first entered the school and was in Teacher Zhou's class, she had been bullied by the 2. It's probably because Yu Fu helped them out before that they are helping Yu Fu today. Yu Fu had always been magnanimous, as she always forgave no matter what. Thus she was always able to reap the rewards. Gu Wenqing said, Eldest brother, should we speak up for Yu Fu? Gu Shubai shook his head. The clan's elders are in a disadvantageous position. If we speak up now, they will feel like they have lost face, and it would have the opposite effect. At a time like this, staying quiet is the best plan, as we wait for one person to arrive. Who are we waiting for? Who said that the ancestors don't want to see you? Gu Huaijiang arrived with Qi An and the others in tow. Seeing him, even the clan's elders respectfully stepped to the side. He could not be considered as being high in seniority, but he was the one with the highest rank in the entire Gu clan. Without him, how could the Gu clan reach a level of radiance? It was to the point that whenever someone from the Gu clan went out, they would be treated with respect. Gu Huaijiang nodded to the clan's elders, then walked toward Gu Changsheng and his brother. It's natural that the clan's elders will hope that their descendants have bright prospects, but what they hope for more is to see their descendants be safe and sound and see them light joss sticks. He patted Gu Changming's shoulder. His impression of this child was that he was similar to Gu Yi, having a frail body when he was young. Everyone must know that my life was saved by Yu Fu. Thus I brought her back to the capital to raise as a daughter. This time, the life of my oldest son, Shu Bai, was also saved by Yu Fu. Without Yu Fu, what peace would there be in my Marquis Gu's manor? What joss sticks would be burned? These words were directed at Gu Changming, but the clan's elders understood that these words were spoken for them to hear. He was telling them just how much Gu Huaijiang valued Yu Fu. He was also telling them that he would have Yu Fu enter the ancestral hall today without exception. The clan's elders had nothing to say. If they tried to argue any further, they would be treating Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai's lives as insignificant. Gu Huaijiang looked around, then waved for Yu Fu to come over. Yu Fu, come here and stand next to your eldest brother. Yu Fu took a step forward, then turned to the clan's elders and bowed. Yu Fu was improper earlier and spoke in a rude tone to the elders. I hope that the elders will forgive me. She had Gu Huaijiang to support her, and even Gu Changsheng and his brother were speaking up for her. Yet she was still apologizing so modestly to the clan's elders. The expressions of the clan's elders improved greatly. Thinking back on what they had just said, they felt a bit of guilt. Young Miss Yu Fu is being too severe. Just now, it was this old man who lost his temper and disrespected Lord Marquis. Young Miss can't be blamed for taking a stern tone. The one that Gui had called granduncle cupped his hands toward Gu Huaijiang. This old man was muddled in my old age. Lord Marquis must not take offense. Gu Huaijiang returned the gesture. Uncle is taking it too seriously. I am one of the younger generation. Even if you say a few words of criticism, it's something that would be perfectly reasonable. Well, this father and daughter pair really was good. They were perfectly harmonized, being courteous after being harsh. It left others completely unable to get angry. Yu Fu walked over to Gu Shubai's side, then lowered her head to secretly laugh. Gu Huaijiang was the first to enter the ancestral hall, and everyone else followed along in single file. After lighting 3 sticks of incense, Gu Huaijiang prayed toward the previous Lord Marquis spirit tablet. All descendants of my Gu clan venerate the memories of our ancestors, train diligently in martial arts, follow the path set by the sages of the past, and serve the country. This unworthy descendant, Huaijiang, entreats the successive generations of ancestors for your blessing and protection to provide the Gu clan with peace and prosperity. After he finished speaking, he turned around. Yu Fu, come over here. This is your first time coming here, so the ancestors have never met you before. Yu Fu blindly listened to Gu Huaijiang and walked over to his side. Gu Jiugu suddenly felt that something was off and glanced at Gu Shubai. The latter had a smile on his face. He lowered his voice. Eldest brother, father is a little strange today. Why was he so insistent on having Yu Fu come to the ancestral hall? Gu Shubai was unperturbed. What is so strange? Think about it. According to Eastern Ling's rules, when has a girl ever been allowed into the ancestral hall? Gu Jiugu thought for a moment. In a girl's life, they are only allowed to enter the ancestral hall once, and that was when they got married. They would enter the ancestral hall of their husband's family. He understood. He understood it all. When they came back, Gu Huaijiang was in no rush to ask about the assassins. Instead, he had them come and pay their respects at the ancestral hall first. He had to know something. The identity of the assassins was unusual and was a great threat to the Gu family. That was why Gu Huaijiang could no longer wait. To have Yu Fu enter the ancestral hall at a time like this? Where was there any intention of treating her as a daughter? He was clearly treating her as his daughter-in-law. As for who would be the husband, there was no need to say. He understood very well. He gnashed his teeth. Yu Fu speaking up for father outside the hall was in vain. She's completely oblivious. She was sold by father, and doesn't even know it. Gu Shubai looked at him sideways. So what if she was sold? She was just sold from our family to our family. Are you worried that Yu Fu will be unhappy? Yu Fu was naturally happy with it. If she had not planned on staying in Marquis Gu's manor, she would not possibly have entered the ancestral hall. She was even unwilling to address Gu Huaijiang as father because she was worried that her identity would be connected to Marquis Gu's manor. How could she possibly be willing to enter the ancestral hall as his daughter? The one who was truly stupid was clearly Gu Jiaoge. Young miss, quickly come and take a look. When Yu Fu returned to the western wing, Yao Lan's group carried out a pile of things. The sight of this was quite dazzling. There were clothes, jewelry, and there was also silver and gold. This was rewarded by His Majesty. They said that it was New Year's money. His Majesty knows that young miss and the second young sir went to save the eldest young sir. I heard that he praised young miss quite a great deal. It was no wonder the rewards were so plentiful. So it was because of Gu Shubai's life. Yu Fu suddenly remembered something. Oh right, after second brother and I left, His Majesty didn't get mad, right? The matter of 500 cavalry members leaving the capital first before informing the emperor, it was natural that word of the event could not be contained. Immediately after young miss and the second young sir left, Lord Marquis went out and waited for the palace's gates to open for 2 hours. When Lord Marquis returned, he was weak, and I heard Steward Qi say that His Majesty wanted to dispatch a few imperial physicians to chase after your group. He should not have gotten mad. Yu Fu said, if His Majesty didn't get mad, does that mean that there was no word from the Board of War? 500 cavalry left the city without warning. This is something that should have been handled by the Board of War, and the officials in court can't have stayed quiet. Lianbai said, there really wasn't. Didn't Lord Marquis give the second young sir his golden decree? That golden decree was meant to allow for the movement of troops without warning. It's just that Lord Marquis always kept a low profile and never made use of it. This was the first time that it had been used, so what could the Board of War say? Though she was just a maidservant, when Lian Bai brought up Gu Huaijiang's merits, she was unable to conceal her pride. Yu Fu could not stop herself from laughing. I wasn't around to celebrate the new year and must have troubled you. Take this silver and gold and share it amongst yourselves. Those who work inside get 1 gold piece, and those who work outside get 1 silver piece. As for these clothes, the clothes had been made based on her measurements, so Lian Bai and the others would be unable to wear them. Yu Fu turned her head to look at Yao Lan. She suddenly noticed that not even Yao Lan could wear her clothes, they were too big. She could not help but reach out to compare heights with Yao Lan. Yao Lan, I only left for half a month. Why is it that I suddenly found that you've gotten shorter? Yu Fu previously hated it when the topic of height was brought up, getting mad at anyone who brought it up. Now, it was Yao Lan. She shrank back and avoided Yu Fu's hand, her small face bright red. It's young miss who sneakily grew taller without telling me. What should I do now? Only I'm the shortest. Yin Ling and Yin Shui stood to the side and covered their mouths while laughing. They were half a head taller than Yao Lan, so there was naturally no need for them to worry. Yin Shui said, young miss, Yao Lan didn't get shorter. She even grew taller. It's young miss who grew too quickly. Did young miss not notice? In the past, your head only reached the eldest young sir's belly, but it now reaches his chest. It was possible that Gu Shubai had spent most of this time lying down, and that led to Yu Fu missing out on this surprising change. She smiled happily. Then just keep these clothes and share the fabric that the head general sent last time. Have them made into new winter clothes. It should have been shared with you before the end of the year. Since it's been delayed until now, don't get mad. Lianzhu hastily said, what is young miss saying? You think too lowly of us. We aren't even able to use up all of the fabric that you usually give us, so how can we dare to feel dissatisfied? After saying this, she covered her mouth and smiled, then looked at Yao Lan. Especially Yao Lan, she has an even harder time using up the fabric. For a moment, nobody reacted to this. They thought that she was saying that Yu Fu rewarded Yao Lan with the most fabric. It was only after a moment that everyone realized what she was saying. She was clearly saying that Yao Lan was short, thus used the least fabric. Sister Lianzhu, You're bullying me too. It's definitely something that Ling taught you. Yao Lan angrily went to pinch Ling's cheeks, but the latter was already prepared, quickly hiding behind Yu Fu. Young miss, save me. It's clearly Sister Lian Zhu who's laughing at her, so why is she coming at me? I refuse to accept this. Yu Fu moved quickly and dodged to the side. Who told you to always make fun of her? I won't get involved in your fights to keep everyone from saying that I'm biased later. Regardless of who fought whom, whenever there was a fight, they would use Yu Fu as a shield. Yu Fu would kindly try to mediate things, but in the end, everyone would call her biased. As such, she just stopped caring. Come, let's have a wager. Will you bet on Yao Lan winning or Ling winning? I'll go first and bet a chicken drumstick at dinner. Because she had grown taller, Yu Fu was in a good mood and boldly wagered a drumstick. Lian Zhu was quick to join in. Then I'll also wager a drumstick. I will wager that Ling will win. When it came to a fight, it was reach that mattered more than height, and Yu Fu said, then I will bet that Yao Lan will win. I will also wager on Yao Lan. I will wager on Ling. Having been used for a bet, Yao Lan and Ling were laughing so hard that their bellies hurt. How could they even fight? Yao Lan thought quickly, we won't fight. Nobody wins. This fight is a draw, so tonight's drumsticks will be given to the two of us. Very well, you two actually dare to act so shamelessly. Now, it was Lian Zhu's group that refused to accept this, and the group began laughing and messing around when they suddenly heard the sound of Li's footsteps. She walked in through the door. A maidservant with her head lowered followed her in. She was dressed plainly, and it was immediately clear that she had come from the countryside. Young miss, Yao Hong has returned. What arrangements for her did you have in mind? What? She was actually Yao Hong? Aside from Yu Fu, the smiles on everyone's faces turned to surprise as they looked at her unkindly. As a maidservant who tried to harm her master, she actually had the face to come back? Ting lifted her head and bowed toward everyone. With a natural smile, it looked as if nothing had happened. Greetings, young miss. Greetings, sisters. What did the head general have to say? Yu Fu picked up her cup of tea and asked this with composure. Though Yu Fu had taken the initiative to allow Ting's return for Qian and Zhou, she also knew that the maidservants in her room did not like Ting. What to do with her was truly a troubling problem. Li looked at Ting. The head general said that if not for taking care of the young miss, the manor had no need for maidservants. That's why everything can be decided on by young miss. There's no need to go and ask the head general. This was to say that Yu Fu now had control over whether Ting lived or died. She nodded. The rest of the manor indeed has no use for maidservants. How about this? Let's just have her continue to work in the western wing like before. Young miss. Since Li was present, Lian Zhu and Lian Bai had things that they wished to say but could not. They had no choice but to swallow their grievances. Yao Lan, however, was not at all afraid, directly asking, has young miss forgotten that she tried to frame you? Last time, her plan was too stupid, and Lord Marquis did not believe her. What if the next time, her plan is better and really does end up causing harm to young miss? Ling and Shui nodded fervently to express their agreement with Yao Lan. Li had brought Ting back because she had been ordered to do so. Her eyes were also telling Yu Fu that she did not hope for Ting to remain in the western wing. Yu Fu looked at Ting with a smile. Yao Lan said it, and you heard it. It would be better if you personally told her. Will you try and harm me again? Ting immediately kneeled. This servant doesn't dare. In the past, this servant failed to recognize the greatness of someone else and always thought of myself as occupying the highest position. Now, this servant has realized the errors of my ways and no longer dare to do that sort of thing. She spoke sincerely, as Yao Lan bit her lip, having nearly believed her. Yu Fu looked around at everyone. Did you all hear that? Yao Hong has already changed. Li, take her to go and see Granny Lu. Have her living arrangements prepared first. Granny Lu? Ting lifted her head in shock and looked at her. The Granny Lu who handles the physical labor in the courtyard? Why would my living arrangements be arranged by her? All of the living arrangements for maidservants who do physical labor are handled by Granny Lu. If you do not work hard, and Granny Lu is displeased, not even I can help you. Yu Fu called her Yao Hong and told her that she would be doing physical labor. Her attitude toward Qi was completely different from before. In the past, she would call her sister Qi as she did with Lian Zhu and Lian Bai. Yao Lan could not hold back her laughter. This one laugh caused Yin Ling and Yin Shui to also laugh. Their young miss really was smart, demoting Qi from the top maidservant in the Western Wing to a maidservant who did physical labor. For such a haughty and proud person, would this not frustrate her to death? Seeing her humiliated expression and having been bullied by her in the past, Lian Zhu and Lian Bai felt quite delighted. Qi could not stop herself from wanting to say something but was interrupted by Yu Fu. Honestly, I'll trouble you with taking her there. I will be going to see Head General since I have not yet properly wished him a Happy New Year. After saying this, she went out with Yao Lan. Qi kneeled on the ground and turned her head to watch her leave. She suddenly had a feeling of unfamiliarity. The current Yu Fu has already grown from an innocent child into a budding beauty. Not only was her appearance becoming more astonishing, but the aura surrounding her was also starting to feel more and more like the one surrounding Gu Huaijiang. She was imposing even without getting angry with a magnanimity that reached the clouds. She could not stop herself from biting her lip. Had she known sooner, she would have just stayed in the Prime Minister's manor where there was no need to worry about food or clothing. It was also more relaxing than cleaning up the courtyard. Yet Yin Shui insisted that she come back. Honestly, young miss said that everyone is to be given one piece. This is yours. Lian Zhu picked out the largest piece from the pile of gold and silver on the platter and stuffed it into Aunt Li's hands. Aunt Li smiled so widely that she could not stop smiling. Young miss has always been generous. It's just that giving a piece of gold to each person might be a little too much. Lian Bai said. Young miss said that only those who work inside are to be given gold. The maidservants and grannies who work outside will be given silver. This is a reward given for New Year's. Since Yao Hong had not yet returned at that time, there's no need to give her any. Honestly, what do you think? That is natural. One should only be able to receive this reward for working earnestly in the manor for a year. Yao Hong only came after the new year, so it's natural that there's no need to give her any. Yao Hong kneeled on the ground and gritted her teeth. She had to listen to them withhold her silver, but could not say anything. The current situation was not the same as it had been in the past. Marquis Gu's manor had an established hierarchy. As a maidservant who did physical labor, she could not argue with a higher-ranked maidservant like Lian Bai. Yao Lan followed Yu Fu to the main hall. Throughout the entirety of the trip, she spoke about Qi previous misdeeds. Finally, she happily said, in the end, young miss really is smart. Though she was brought back, she has been arranged to take care of menial labor. But why not just have her sent somewhere else? What other place is there? Is it the main hall, eldest brother's place, or maybe second or third brother's places? They don't have any other maidservants, so having an extra girl there would be inconvenient. She only wants to climb to a higher social status. If it was arranged for her to work in a young sir's courtyard, would that not be going along with her wishes? Yu Fu suddenly came to a stop and mockingly laughed. I'm not worried about going along with her wishes. Rather, I'm worried that she would steal some of the manor's secrets while at my older brother's sides and cause a great deal of trouble. You guys will need to keep a close eye on her. While you're at it, tell Ani Li to let her regain her original name. Yao Lan said with displeasure. A lowly servant like her wants to use her original name? What is young miss doing being so kind to her? I'm not being kind to her. Instead, I feel that she is not worthy of sharing the same name as you. Lord Marquis, young Miss Yu Fu has come. Qian personally entered to report this, a smile on his face. Who knew whether it was from the festive feeling of New Year's, or if it was because Qi Ting had returned. Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai were in the middle of a conversation. Hearing that Yu Fu had arrived, they quickly cut their conversation short. Upon entering the room, Yu Fu saw Gu Shubai. Eldest brother is also here. Have you also come to wish Head General a Happy New Year? That's right. Gui and the others have already come and done so. Why have you only come just now? Yufu glanced at Qian. Ani Li brought cheating back, so I needed to make arrangements for her. That's why I came a little later. Head General, Happy New Year. She respectfully kneeled and performed a salute to wish the older generation a Happy New Year. And Gu Huaijiang quickly gave Yao Lan a look to help her up. Yes, Happy New Year, come. Gu Huaijiang happily gestured for her to step forward and pulled out a large red pouch. It's New Year's money. Yufu received the pouch and looked at Gu Shubai. Is this something that only I am getting, or are all of my older brothers getting some? Gu Shubai said, your second brother, third brother, and I aren't getting any. Fourth brother and the younger ones got it. But the contents are all different. Take a look inside and see. Yufu opened the pouch and found that it did not contain things like gold, silver, or precious gems. Instead, it was a thick piece of brown paper. Could it just be a banknote? Taking it out, she found that it was much larger than a banknote, and there was the image of a room drawn on it. She said in shock, this is a deed to a house? Head General, are you giving me a house as New Year's money? Gu Huaijiang found her reaction to be quite entertaining. That's right. This courtyard is next to Westlake and has a total of 5 divisions. It's neither large nor small and is very tasteful. You like Westlake, so you can go there for short trips when you have the time. When Yufu married Gu Shubai in the future, it would not do to have the bridal sedan set out from Marquis Gu's manor then turn around and go straight back inside, right? He had to provide Yufu with a place that could be considered her own. Yufu did not understand his intentions and only thought about the 5-division courtyard. He said that was neither too big nor too small. She clicked her tongue. I thought that the things given by His Majesty were already generous enough. Who knew that Head General would be even more generous? Then what did fourth brother and the others get? If everyone was given a courtyard, Marquis Gu's manor might be a little too wealthy. Gu Huaijiang said, oh, they got 50 taels of silver each. Yufu, it was not even as much as what she gave her maidservants. Sure enough, sons were raised strictly. Right, Head General, have any clues been found about the assassins that tried to kill eldest brother's group? Gu Huaijiang and Gu Shubai exchanged a look. In truth, before Yufu entered, they were discussing this exact topic. It was fine. There was no need to hide this matter from Yufu. Gu Huaijiang said to Qian, you are all dismissed for now. Qian waved and led all of the servants out of the room, leaving father, son, and daughter alone in the room. Given the situation, it was clear that Gu Huaijiang had indeed discovered something. After the incident occurred, not only did His Majesty not assign any blame for mobilizing troops without permission. On the contrary, he fully supported the investigation. With Yin Zhang having been poisoned, the first group that I suspected was the special envoy from Western Kuan, but all of their people are registered. It's impossible for them to bring out an extra 100 people to attack Shubai's group. Yufu said, while we were in Changzhou, eldest brother also said this. Since it's not Western Kuan's special envoy, who else could it be? Gu Huaijiang sighed. The Board of War does not dare interfere with the mobilization of troops, and that was within my expectations. But there was one person who, even if there's nothing on me, still suspects me a great deal. This time, when there was something that could be used against me, he did not say anything. This obviously made me suspicious. In court, the only one who would dare to suspect Gu Huaijiang and could interfere would be the Prime Minister, Yin Yan. All three fell silent for a while. Even Yufu knew that the discord between Eastern Ling's general and Prime Minister had always worried Gu Huaijiang. He had even made many attempts to get closer with Yin Yan. However, he was always treated coldly. Gu Huaijiang said, don't look at how Prime Minister Yin is perceived negatively in court. His talent as the Prime Minister is not something that can be ignored. It's fortunate that Eastern Ling has had him managing the situation in court over the years. It's thanks to him that I can fight on the front lines without worrying about problems in the future. If it's uncovered that it really was he who tried to poison Shubai, who would profit the most from the discord between the general and the Prime Minister? The group from Western Kuan was still in the capital. If they were allowed to see the discord between Eastern Ling's general and Prime Minister, the citizens living near the border would need to worry once more. Gu Shubai also said, after all, I am fine. If the situation in court becomes unstable because of me alone, I will feel quite bad about it. It would be best if we don't bring this subject up any further. One understood very clearly that his favorite son nearly died, but would need to compromise for the sake of maintaining the court's stability. The other nearly lost his life, but needed to stay silent to protect the people who tried to kill him. If she had not heard it herself, Yu Fu would be unable to believe just how magnanimous the father and son of the Gu family were. Yu Fu said, "The people of Marquis Gu's manor were born for the sake of family and country and die for the sake of family and country. You never even give your lives a second thought. I really admire that, but with this matter getting talked about so much, just because you don't want to investigate it does not mean that it won't be investigated." For the sake of Gu Shubai, not only was Emperor Ning tolerant of the cavalry leaving the city, but he had also anxiously sent imperial physicians. He also gave a large reward. In his eyes, Gu Shubai was the most valuable descendant in Eastern Ling. He was also the ideal son-in-law. How could he possibly give up on the investigation? A bang came from inside the study of the Prime Minister's manor. The sound was muffled but heavy. It sounded as if a fist had landed on a sturdy desk, and the guards outside exchanged a glance. It had already been an hour since the eldest young sir had gone in, and his expression had been very ugly when he entered. Now, he must be beside himself with anger. In the end, they pretended not to hear to avoid going in and being a bother. Kuren Wushang, that damn Kuren Wushang. In Shua sat in the darkness behind the desk. He did not open a window, nor did he light a candle. In the evening mist, his visage that was as fine as jade became twisted. There was a brocade box placed on the desk. On the day that he had asked Kuren Wushang about Yu Fu's identity, Kuren Wushang became angry and left, telling him to visit the post house when he had thought of how he would like to be repaid. A few days after that, In Shua sent someone over, and the person returned with this brocade box. Kuren Wushang said that it contained a deadly poison. It was a poison that even Yu Fu might not be able to treat. By the time that she figured out how to treat it, the victim would have already died. But why was Gu Shubai able to return safely? The informant stationed near Marquis Gu's manor reported that he looked fine, and there was not the slightest sign of illness. What nonsense about deadliness? What nonsense about a poison that Yu Fu can't treat? Kuren Wushang had clearly schemed against him, but he could not figure it out. Why? Did Kuren Wushang not want Gu Shubai to die? "Lord Prime Minister, you've returned." The voice of the guard outside quickly brought In Shua back to the present. Immediately following this was In Yan's voice. "Is it the eldest young sir inside the study?" "Yes, the eldest young sir has been here for a while." In Yan walked through the door and furrowed his brow. The inside of the study was dark. Not a single candle had been lit. This was not at all like In Shua's usual style. After waiting for a moment, a figure stood up from behind the desk as In Shua came forward to greet him. "Father." His voice contained a disappointment that he had never heard before. In Yan's eyes were sharp, looking him over quickly. Behind them, a servant came in, lit a candle, bowed, then exited. "What happened to make you so inattentive?" In Shua bowed, then kneeled on the ground. "Father, son was schemed against by Kuren Wushang, and I fear that I have invited disaster upon our Prime Minister's manor." "What?" In Yin waved his broad sleeve and sat down behind the desk. "What exactly happened? Tell me in detail." In Shua took a deep breath to settle himself down a little more. "The assassins that tried to kill Gu Shubai were sent out by Sun. I received a poison from Kuren Wushang's side. I originally thought that I could take his life in a single strike, but who knew that Gu Zhuge would take Yu Fu and set out so quickly, then managed to save him?" "Fool, who told you to assassinate Gu Shubai?" In Yin slammed the table and stood up. This matter was even brought up in court, and father was wondering who would be so bold. Who knew that it would actually be you? Why did you hide it from father and try to assassinate Gu Shubai without permission? Father has always despised Gu Huaijiang for amassing troops to improve his own position and suspected him of being in cahoots with Western Kuan. This time, Gu Shubai only brought 40 people to escort the Su family's mother and daughter back to Jinling. So what better opportunity? Yin Yen looked at him sideways. Father's suspicions of Gu Huaijiang are genuine, and the hatred is real too. However, father wishes to find evidence to cause his downfall in court. There is no desire to have him killed secretly. Also, it would be one thing if you had tried to kill Gu Huaijiang, but why go after Gu Shubai? Father told you to investigate Yu Fu's identity. Rather than devote your efforts to important matters, you did something so sinister. Father is beyond disappointed in you. He only had one son in Yin Shuo, and he had always thought highly of him. This was the first time that he had scolded him so fiercely. Yin Shuo knew that he had done something wrong and could not argue. But he was not wrong for trying to kill Gu Shubai. He was wrong for trusting Kuren Wushang. Yin Yin continued, "Do you know just how much importance His Majesty has attached to this case? He has already ordered the Imperial Court of Justice to investigate this case. Once any connection to the Prime Minister's manor has been found, not even Father will be able to protect you. Also, how could you be so negligent as to believe Kuren Wushang?" Yin Shuo was feeling a great deal of regret over this and hated that he could not skin him in his sleep. Kuren Wushang does not like the engagement between Gu Shubai and Yu Fu, and he detests Gu Shubai. Moreover, Sun did not fully trust him. All 100 of the assassins that were sent out were top-tier experts, who knew that Gu Huaijiang, who usually kept a low profile, would send out 500 troops. If this was a battlefield, 500 soldiers would not be considered much, but in a peaceful country, 500 could be considered a big deal. Gu Huaijiang really cared a great deal about his eldest son. Yin Yin sighed and helped him up from the ground. "Sit down to speak. Blaming you now is pointless. It would be better to quickly think of a way to distance yourself from this matter." Yin Shuo shook his head. If he could cleanly distance himself from this matter, there would be no need for him to be so troubled. "Father, if Kuren Wushang wished to use this matter to harm Sun, I fear that he would disclose the matter of this box of poison to His Majesty on his own. How could he dare? As a prince from Western Kuren, he ought to want to try and curry favor with our Prime Minister's manor. So how could he turn around and decide to drag you down instead?" A cold feeling crept up from his feet. Yin Shuo had always thought of himself as smart, but this time, he had to admit that he had grossly underestimated his enemy. It was possible that he was mistaken from the very beginning, and Kuren Wushang never wanted to use him to deal with Marquis Gu's manor. That seemingly frivolous and idle prince had a heart that was like inky water. It made it hard for people to see his true intentions. There's nothing uncertain about it. This prince suddenly did not want Gu Shubai to die. That's all. In the post-house's inner courtyard, Qigong anxiously entered Kuren Wushang's room. Kuren Wushang casually gestured and had Qigong sit where he was pointing. He then ordered an attendant to bring his medicine kit over. This medicine kit was very similar to the one that Yu Fu had. Even the jars and bottles inside were very similar. The kit was quite full, and Kuren Wushang usually took very good care of these things. Qigong sat down below and anxiously furrowed his brow. It was such a good chance to kill off Marquis Gu's heir. So why did 7th Prince suddenly no longer want him to die? Were you not unhappy about his engagement to your little senior disciple? Just how much effort did Western Kuan soldiers expend at the border, and how much fighting power had been lost? Yet they had never been able to do anything to harm the members of Marquis Gu's manor in any way. The previous time, they finally managed to poison Gu Huaijiang with Kunlun snow, and they were satisfied with that success. However, he was saved by Yu Fu. Western Kuan's many years of planning were ruined in just an instant. This time, they had a chance to kill Gu Shubai, yet Kuren Wushang tossed it aside. Qigong was so angry that he could not even eat, much less sleep well. Kuren Wushang, however, continued to act carefree. The anger made his liver hurt. Kuren Wushang shot a glare at him. This prince wishes to call her little senior disciple, but that does not mean that I wish to hear others refer to her like this. You should just call her young Miss Yu Fu. Also, it's not like I refuse to allow Gu Shubai to die. It's that Yin Shuo was too useless. I can't be blamed. He pulled out a thin porcelain bottle from his medicine kit. This is a secret poison based on a young plant, and there are no records of it even in Immortal's Valley. It's possible that not even Yu Fu knows what sort of poison it is. It's not as poisonous as a Upus, but it's no less toxic than Kunlun's snow. Speaking truthfully, I really don't know if Yu Fu knows how to deal with this poison. Qigong slapped his thigh. And you couldn't give him a poison that can't be treated? If Gu Shubai died by my poison, and the plot was exposed, not to mention Emperor Ning refusing to forgive me, but even Yu Fu would refuse to forgive me. She is Master's most beloved disciple. I believe there's no need to tell you just how important Master is. Qigong helplessly sighed, but continued to brood over Gu Shubai's situation. If he could not be beaten to death, it would also be fine if he lost an arm or a leg. That would have the effect of reducing the strength of the Gu family's army. Kuan Wushang continued, initially, I thought of leaving the matter of whether Gu Shubai lived or died to fortune, but who knew that Inshua would be so useless? He sent out 100 assassins, but could not kill a severely poisoned Gu Shubai. What a joke. Qigong thought to himself. You're just talking without putting in any work. 500 members of the Gu family army were mobilized. Is that something 100 assassins can fight against? Kuan Wushang casually glanced at him from the corner of his eye. You aren't speaking. Are you internally cursing this prince right now? I don't dare. I don't dare. This lowly official does not dare. Qigong lifted his hand and wiped away some sweat from his brow. This lowly official was just thinking that since your poison didn't work, eldest young Serene definitely will not let this matter slide. I fear that not only will he refuse to collaborate with us in dealing with Marquis Gu's manor, but he will actually work against you. Working against you would be no big deal, but it would be bad if those who did not know about the situation were implicated. Kuan Wushang nodded. That's right. I've also thought of this. That's why we need to act first and take the initiative before he moves against me. How should we take the initiative first? Send this bottle of poison to Emperor Ning and tell Emperor Ning about Inshua asking me for this bottle of poison. Won't this grand case be solved just like that? Qigong let out a heavy sigh. Seventh Prince, have you gone crazy? You were the one who gave away this poison. How does putting this out there to hurt young Serene help you? Prime Minister Yin absolutely will not let you off. The special envoy would also be in danger. Kuan Wushang sorted through his medicine kit. Suddenly noticing a small white bottle, he pulled it out and laughed hollowly. Lord Qigong, take a guess at what this medicine is? Qigong subconsciously leaped up and took a few steps back. During the New Year celebrations, Eastern Ling's courts were on vacation. Neither Emperor Ning nor the hundreds of officials discussed official matters. As a result, the special envoy had nobody to ask about the situation and found themselves extremely bored. Kuan Wushang was the one who had the hardest time sitting still. When he was bored, he would use the special envoy to test his poisons, and Qigong had already become terrified from his messing about. There's no need to be nervous. In truth, there's no poison in my bag that Yu Fu can't treat. If your life is in danger, we can go and look for Yu Fu. Even if she clearly knows that you're a special envoy from Western Kuan with bad intentions, she will not just let you die. A thought seemed to have come to Qigong. Then saying it like this, young Miss Yu Fu is a benevolent person? Kuan Wushang was very delighted. Naturally, but the more benevolent a person is, the easier they are to deal with. I would rather deal with a kind person than a vile person like Inshua. Qigong found this to be quite reasonable and quickly regained his composure. That's not right. Whether eldest young Serene is a benevolent person or a vile person, what does that matter to us? The one that we must deal with is Marquis Gu's manor. The people in the Prime Minister's manor are of no threat to us. Who said that they aren't a threat? Thinking back to the way that Inshua looked at Yu Fu, he felt totally uncomfortable. Compared to the discomfort that Gu Shubai made him feel, this was even more uncomfortable. Kuan Wushang snorted with contempt. He might not be a threat to Western Kuan, but he is a great threat to this prince. I absolutely must get rid of that person. In the dead of night, a shadow flickered in Emperor Ning's bedchamber. What is so important that you had to come and see us in the middle of the night, just after the New Year? He was wearing a set of bright yellow night clothes, and his imperial hat had also been removed, revealing his mottled silver hair. Eunuch Gao came out behind him and waved for the palace maids to leave when Emperor Ning sat down. This group of court officials had suddenly come to see him late at night during the resting period just after the new year. There had to be something urgent that they wished for him to hear. Emperor Ning sat behind the imperial desk and looked up at them. He suddenly felt that the group of people standing there were very familiar, and that he had seen them just a few days earlier. Ji Daogong, Pei Zheng, Lin Yi. Ji Daogong was an imperial censor from the censorate. It was his job to investigate every angle and determine whether or not someone was guilty. Pei Zheng was an official from the Imperial Court of Justice. He was responsible for adjudicating cases and handing out punishments. Lin Yi was a lower-ranked official from the Imperial Court of Justice and was his assistant. Why had they come together? Emperor Ning waved his hand and gestured for them to sit before speaking. For two second-rank officials and a third-rank official to come and visit so late at night, it must not be a trivial matter. Eunuch Gao quickly gave the other servants a look to bring out some tea, as Emperor Ning looked at Pei Zheng. We handed over the matter of investigating what happened to Marquis Gu's heir to the Imperial Court of Justice. Your Imperial Court of Justice has many talented people, so were there some findings? Pei Zheng stood up and cupped his hands, saying, "This subject came so late at night because of this matter. Your Majesty, the investigation was conducted by official Lin, and he found some clues. However, these clues involve an official of a higher rank. The two of us did not dare to continue investigating without permission. Since accusing a court official of misconduct is handled by the censorate, this official acted presumptuously and also invited Lord Ji. Ji Daogong was the top official in the censorate. He was over 60 years of age and was a senior official in court with a great deal of prestige. It was because he had this prestige that he rarely spoke out when he lacked any conclusive evidence of misconduct. Since Pei Zheng was able to convince him, it was natural that there was some semblance of evidence. Emperor Ning looked at Lin Yi. "Official Lin, please tell. What have you found?" Lin Yi stood up and reported. "Replying to your Majesty, the matter of Marquis Gu's heir being attacked happened during the latter half of the 12th month. At that time, the various agencies in the palace were preparing to shut down and start the break. Normally speaking, the various manors should not be making any big moves aside from preparing special items for New Year's celebrations. However, this lowly subject noticed that the Prime Minister's manor had mobilized a large number of people. The Prime Minister's manor? Emperor Ning furrowed his brow. What was the Prime Minister's manor mobilizing a large number of people for? This scale, just how large is it? Linny said, Lord Marquis Gu has always kept a low profile and very rarely dispatches a large number of troops. Even when sending the mother and daughter of the Su family back to Jinling, he only sent 40 people. To deal with these 40 from the Gu family's army, one would need at least twice as many experts to have a chance of victory. The Prime Minister's manor mobilized more than 3 times as many. In the report sent by Prefect Quan Jian, the number of assassins at the bottom of the cliff matched perfectly. 3 times as many, which meant there were over 100 people. For something as important as escorting ladies, Marquis Gu's manor only dispatched 40 people. What did the Prime Minister's manor need to dispatch over 100 people for? He had never heard Yin bring it up before. It could not be that over 100 people were sent to buy New Year's specials, right? After a moment of silence, Emperor Ning ran his fingers through his beard. This matter involves the current Prime Minister. Clumsiness cannot be tolerated. If it's just a coincidence that the numbers lined up, it can't be certain that it was done by Prime Minister Yin, right? Lin Yi hastily said, that is indeed the case, but Prime Minister Yin is a standard first-rank official. Thus this subject has no right to investigate him for this case and can only report this to your Majesty. This was to say that they currently suspected the Prime Minister's manor but could not be certain. Emperor Ning's expression improved a bit and finally turned toward Ji Daogong. It's because of this suspicion that Lord Ji was invited over so late at night. You two of the younger generation acted a little too improperly. Ji Daogong held the back of his chair and stood up, his back slightly hunched. There's no need for your Majesty to assign any blame on the two. It was this old subject who had something to take care of. This matter is closely related to the matter what they brought up. That's why I came along with them. This old subject wishes to report Prime Minister Een for misconduct. He secretly communicated with the special envoy from Western Kuan to try and bring harm to our Eastern Ling. Clatter. Emperor Ning's hand swayed, and the lid on the blue and white teacup shook, nearly falling to the ground. He quickly reached out to steady it and cover up his loss of control. Secret communications with Western Kuan's special envoy? This matter, how did the elder official find out about it? Ji Daogong looked at Lin Yin, and the latter slightly nodded. Thus he reported. Replying to your majesty, in truth, when Marquis Gu's heir was attacked, the first one that this subject suspected was the group from Western Kuan. The Gu family's army has been stationed at the border and defended Eastern Ling's territory. If not for the presence of the Gu family's army, Western Kuan might have already invaded our country and disturbed our citizens. That's why this subject sent someone to the post house to keep an eye on the special envoy. There, I found that they did not have the manpower for such a mobilization, but there was an unexpected discovery. This subject's subordinates heard that the poison used on Marquis Gu's heir was a poison that only Western Kuan has. Manpower from the Prime Minister's manor and poison from Western Kuan's special envoy. The two were brought together to try and kill Gu Shubai. From that, the fact that the two of them had communicated in secret was discovered. Now, things had come together. Ji Daogong continued. The reason that the investigation could not continue is the same as with the Imperial Court of Justice. Prime Minister Een is a standard first-rank official who has a higher rank than this subject, and Western Kuan's special envoy has a unique status. Since both sides have influential positions, this subject could not bring it up in court lightly and could only come to report to your majesty late at night. Emperor Ning fully understood their intentions. It seems that this matter will require us to bring in Prime Minister Een and the special envoy from Western Kuan to reveal what happened. The three reached a tacit agreement and cupped their hands in salute. We ask your majesty to graciously grant this request. The next day was the 15th of the first month, the day of the Lantern Festival. Court had not yet been reopened, and the officials were still on their rest period. The various families and manors were hanging up lanterns of various colors. When night came and the candles were lit, they would look even more beautiful than they did during the day. Een Ji Yao led a group of people on a walk through the manor and dully said, "This year's lanterns are old. They're the same as the ones from last year? Could it be that our Prime Minister's manor doesn't even have the money to buy lanterns?" The Prime Minister's manor was a prominent family with many businesses. It was natural that they were not lacking money to buy lanterns, so these words were clearly putting the blame on the servants for not handling matters properly. The steward who was directing the hanging of lanterns stepped forward and gave an uneasy salute. Young Miss might not know, but new lanterns should have been purchased, but the eldest young sir has not had any free time recently to manage the manor's affairs and ordered us to keep things simple. That's why we brought out the same lanterns that were used last year. The Prime Minister's manor did not have a female master, and Een Yin was busy with work. In the past, all of the manor's affairs had been handled by Een Shua. For some reason, Een Shua had spent the past few days hiding unhappily in the outer study. He also could not be bothered to handle the manor's affairs, and no matter what was asked, he would say that simple is best. If he was asked again, he would get irritated. After this happened a few times, the servants no longer dared to bother him. The steward continued, "If young Miss does not like these old lanterns, you can go and speak with the eldest young sir. As long as he approves, we can immediately go out to buy new lanterns." Despite clearly knowing that Een Shua was in a bad mood, this steward still wanted her to go and have a stroke of bad luck. Was he trying to cause her harm? Een Ji Yao rolled her eyes at him and no longer had any desire to look at the lanterns. She just led her maidservants and grannies back to her courtyard. Behind her, the steward gently shook his head with a faint but mocking smile on his face. "Quickly hang them up. They need to be hung up all over the manor, and they need to be up before it gets dark." During this rare rest period, Een Yin was not holed up in the outer study, nor was he resting in the main study. Instead, he went alone to the ancestral hall. The Prime Minister's manor was not as prosperous as Marquis Gu's manor, and there were not as many tablets. The tablet at the front belonged to his first wife, Yang Shi, and the ones behind that belonged to the ancestors of the Yin family. Yin Yan's generation only had one son, and who knew that Yin Shua would also be the only son of his generation. There was also Yin Jiao, who could barely help cover up the feeling of regret. Eastern Ling's Yin family has loyally served the ruler for 4 generations. This lowly Yin Yin was among them. Despite being cautious and conscientious for half my life, I could not return the Yin family to the glory of my ancestors' time. Gu Huaijiang amassed a large army to grow his influence. As a military commander, his prestige is greater than that of the courts. The people of Eastern Lin only recognize the great marquis and general, but not the prime minister. It might not be long before they even forget their ruler. As he reached the end, his voice grew quieter and quieter. Picking up 3 sticks of incense, he kneeled on the prayer mat and respectfully bowed 3 times, then placed the incense before the spirit tablets. This unfilial descendant, Yin Yin, was powerless and could not stop Gu Huaijiang from gaining the power to completely overpower the court. Since I have one son in Yin Shua, I may as well hand down the things that I could not accomplish to him, master. Out in the courtyard, a gatekeeper hastily rushed over. Standing outside the ancestral hall, they bowed and saluted. What's the need for such haste? His Majesty has given a decree ordering Master to enter the palace without fail. That pair of eyes that were as sharp as a hawk's had become muddy and aged at some point. Yin Yin closed his eyes, and who knew what he was thinking? After a long moment, he slowly stood up and straightened out his purple and gold hat. Prepare the carriage. We will be going into the palace immediately. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.